Good evening, everybody. Good evening to all the teachers here with us tonight. Welcome to all our summer webinar series, English language teaching approaches, methods, and techniques. For today, we have this amazing webinar. Is there a right way to teach grammar in 2024? That is what we're going to find out tonight. And to start with this, we have some things for you to remember. I would like you to invite, I want to invite you to follow us on Facebook, where we already have 26 million members. We're kind of a lot because we have also a lot of followers. And I want you to check out our page because there are a lot of things that I want you to see. Maybe we can also share things there. So please go check, enter to the group. We also have our WhatsApp groups where we already have 4,000 members. But as I said before, if you want to be part of these, just send us a message through our Facebook and you can be part of this amazing community through the WhatsApp too. We also have Telegram. On YouTube, you can see all the webinars that have been held during all these years. And you can also see the ones that passed a few days ago and the one that is being held tonight. So you can see it again. And of course, I want to invite you to be part of our TikTok, where we already have 1,288 followers, and where you can also check some interesting things for you to learn, for you to practice, for you to share with friends, colleagues. So please be part of our community. And now we have some instructions for you to follow. First, please type your questions in the comment section. Then the answers to your questions and comments will be replied by our guest speaker at the end of the webinar in the question time section. Then about the exit ticket, when finishing the webinar, we will share a link for you to have access to the exit ticket, which will be available for 15 minutes. Then now we're going to meet our guest speaker, and that is going to be done by my friend Gina, please.
Hi, hello, good evening, everyone. Good evening, dear colleague. It's a pleasure to be here, continue learning. And in today's webinar, I'm going to introduce Mr. Leonardo Mercado with the topic, is there a right way to teach grammar in 2024? Mr. Leo has been working with thousands of teachers over close to 3 decades. As a successful leader of language programs and teaching professionals, he was the academic director manager at IBNA and Euridiomas for close to 25 years, being the only person to ever lead 2 international accreditations process, the CEA and EQUALS, with the highest degree of success. As a writer, he has authored more than 20 international publications in the US and the UK, sharing his insights at conferences of Latin America, North America, and Europe. He also served in diverse leadership roles in a wide array of international organizations, such as TESOL International, ETiP, the College Board, and others. In the area of language testing, he has been certified as an assessor for the University of Cambridge, University of Michigan, the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages, and the United States Peace Corps. At present, he is the founder and executive director of NYC Learning Solutions, with an additional role as certified trainer for the fastest growing optical chain in the United States, heading efforts and its main training hub in the Southeast. With regard to the Ministry of Education's public service examinations, for example, Nombramiento and Ascenso, he has prepared hundreds of teachers with a nearly perfect record of success. Thank you, Mr. Leonardo. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Gina, Angela, Mariela, and everyone, all all my fine friends at English Teachers in Peru. It's certainly a pleasure to be here, and I'm very happy to participate in yet another fantastic Summer Institute event. So again, I know how important it is, since you're doing so much for teachers in Peru and actually throughout Latin America, because I see that there are participants from other countries. So I'm very happy to be here today, and I thank you for the kind introduction. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. We're going to talk about, see here, let me just give me a second. Let's just get this in order. Make sure we are in business. Let's take a look here. Let's activate our presentation. So today we're going to talk about a topic that never really loses relevance, right? We're going to talk about grammar specifically. And so grammar never really loses significance here. There we go. There we go. I think we are in business. Let's share our computer sound, which is something I always tend to forget. So yeah, that's the question. Is there a right way to teach grammar in 2024? You know, we've been seeing efforts to kind of see it disappear into the past, losing relevance, people thinking, hey, maybe we don't need to focus on grammar so much anymore. But the fact of the matter is, it's as important as it ever was. And so where are we today? And that's the question I'd like to answer with the presentations that hopefully you will find very helpful and practical and insightful. So that's going to be the effort I'm going to make today. And again, I thank English Teachers in Peru for the opportunity to be here with you. Basically, we're going to start off by talking about grammar in terms of its relationship with the nature of language, how important it is to the English language, and why we have to do our very best to make sure it is a part of everything we do in the courses that we teach, whether it be in schools, whether it be at the university, whether it be at language centers, and so on. And then we're going to look at specific methods, because I know that that's always a topic that is considered a priority when it comes to the ministry examinations. And so we're going to look at that as well. We're going to watch some classes today, again, analyzing how the approach to grammar can be effectively applied in the classroom for outcomes that we really seek from our learners. We're going to look at some general principles that still apply, that never change, and some new ones, especially in the world of virtual and online teaching. And finally, we're going to look at standards insofar as they apply to students, learners, when it comes to grammar, and of course, teachers. Okay, let's go into the next stage here. We're going to start off with nature of grammar and language. And grammar is important when it comes to language. And when it comes to language in general, when we're teaching, we're looking at everything we do divided basically into two main categories. So what we cover in most language teaching experiences is language skills on one hand, and language forms on the other. And language skills basically have to do, we have speaking and writing and listening and reading. Okay, and language forms are made up of lexis, pronunciation, and grammar for the most part. Okay, so basically everything that encompasses a teaching and learning experience is here on this screen. And if we want to describe what language skills actually do, language skills is basically what we do with a language, and language forms are what we need to be able to do those things. Okay, so that's how we can look at language skills and language forms as part of the teaching and learning process. And we're covering all of these things constantly all the time, okay, with our students. Of course, if we're looking at broader categories, everything we do in the classroom at any particular time, again, whether it's in a physical classroom or whether it's in an online environment, is either in the area of form-focused instruction or meaning-focused instruction, okay? And so form-focused instruction, another word for instruction is teaching. Form-focused teaching or meaning-focused teaching. So if you look at a typical 90-minute, 60-minute, 120-minute class, at any particular time, we're doing one or the other, whether it's form-focused or meaning-focused. Our students are engaged in a variety of activities. and we're also doing a variety of things that are oriented towards one or the other. And that's particularly helpful because when it comes to grammar, grammar falls within form-focused instruction. And that has implications for what we do in class, right? So here we see a teacher teaching grammar, specifically the verb to be, with the pronoun I, right? But when we divide the content of our courses and our lessons into form-focused teaching and meaning-focused teaching, for example, that can be very helpful because when it comes to form-focused teaching or form-focused instruction, that is when corrective feedback is appropriate. That is when corrective feedback or error correction is called for. In other words, whenever we're teaching grammar, again, the focus of today's session, but also lexis or vocabulary, expressions, language chunks, and so on, and of course, pronunciation, we do apply corrective feedback and error correction. Because a lot of times I hear, when should I correct errors? When is the right time during a lesson? Well, whenever you're teaching language forms, okay, whenever you're carrying out form-focused instruction, that is a perfect opportunity and an appropriate one to apply corrective feedback or error correction. So that's why it's important. Of course, today, as I said before, we're going to focus on grammar. A reflection question. Can we communicate without grammar? I'd like you to think about that for about 30 seconds. And what do you think the answer is? What do you think about that? Can we communicate without grammar? So, again, a lot of people in the past were calling for, even removing grammar from the curriculum. And in order to do that, your answer to this question has to be no, or yes, excuse me. So that's the question. What do you think? Let me take a look at some answers. Let me put on my glasses because I have presbyopia. Presbyopia is a condition by which the lens behind the pupil doesn't focus so well anymore on small text. So let me take a look and see. I can see everybody's answers here. We need it. Yes, we can. I think so. No, we can't. So we're getting a lot of answers, pretty much mixed from the audience. Okay. It wouldn't be that easy. Okay, Jose Ortega says, yes, we can, but it wouldn't be that easy. Okay, Karim Santos says, yes, we can. And everybody's kind of pitching in. Now we're leaning a little more towards the yes column. Okay, so let's answer the question. And the answer is yes, we can. And let's take a look at an example. So here, for example, we have an imaginary interaction between a waiter and a patron or a customer. Okay. And so the waiter says, yes, sir, what are we having today? And the patron says, yes, please, cheeseburger, fries, French. Okay, is that a cheeseburger with French fries? Yes. Anything to drink? Soda, Coke. All right. Any dessert? Pie of apple. Okay. All right. So here, for example, there's some communication going on. Yeah, we see communication going on. The patron or the customer has very limited language proficiency. And so he's resorting to the use of mainly vocabulary, throwing some vocabulary words, the right ones, the best he can, in the direction of the waiter. Okay. And the waiter understands the order. So there is communication going on. There isn't much grammar, but they are communicating. Now, we can communicate without grammar, but we really don't want to. Why not? Because it can make a difference if we do use grammar and we use it successfully or correctly. So let's look at the conversation again with a little grammar thrown in there. Waiter, yes, sir, what are we having today? Yes, I'd like a cheeseburger with French fries, please. Anything to drink? Yes, I'll have a Coke. No ice. Any dessert? Sure, I'll get the apple pie. Now, you see how different it is, the quality of the language? You see how it flows? You see how better the interaction goes when there is grammar there. Okay, present. Yeah, again, we can communicate without grammar, focusing on vocabulary, we use the right words, but the communication is not as fluid. It's not as easy to understand because it can lead to misunderstandings, again, very easily. So what does grammar offer? Okay, what does grammar offer in this context? Well, it offers structure to the language that we use whenever we're communicating. It allows us to organize our ideas, which is very, very important if we want to get ourselves or make ourselves understood to other people as we're interacting. It provides cohesion. In other words, it provides the means or the way to link ideas and bring them together so they flow in a logical manner. And when we master grammar, grammar allows us to produce quantity of language, a lot more language. Without grammar, we can only produce very little, a very small amount of language. Beyond that, if we try to go beyond that, then it's very likely people will not understand what we're trying to say, or they're going to misunderstand us. And of course, with grammar, our language can become more complex. The complexity is important if we really want to improve in our ability to use a language, whether it be English or French or Spanish or German or Italian or whatever language you might be on your mind, or whatever language you're trying to learn. The only way you can have more complex use of a language is if you can broaden or increase significantly your repertoire of grammar. The grammar at your disposal as a resource. Now, Dr. Jack Richards, he's a famous author. He's the author of perhaps the most successful course book or textbook that's ever been created for English language learners, Interchange. He says, we need to use grammar as a communicative resource. Now, that's the British pronunciation. In American English, we say resource, but it's the same thing. So grammar should be a resource or resource for communication. And it can only get more complex. Our ability to use language can only get complex if we have at our disposal a wider variety of resources in the form of grammar. Now, grammar is not specifically mentioned in the Common European Framework. It's not specifically mentioned in the Marco Común Europeo, right? This is the Spanish version. But if you really want to move from one level to the other, if you want to go from an A1 to an A2, from an A2 to a B1, and so on, all the way to C1 and possibly C2, especially if you have the opportunity to live and study abroad quite extensively, then the only way you can do that is by enormously increasing your ability to use grammar for communication and having a broader and broader, and ever broader would be the term, an ever broader repertoire of grammatical structures at your disposal. Again, we're going to talk about knowing about language and then being able to use it. But you want to be able to use it, not just know about it. Okay? All right, good. So how much grammar do I have to teach? Okay, we know grammar is important. Still important today in the year 2024. It's still important. So how much grammar do I have to teach? Now, in most cases, when we don't think about it too much and we don't reflect about it too much, we focus on, or we let ourselves depend on textbooks. The textbooks give us the grammar we have to teach. But if we really want to ponder on how much we have to teach and how much our students have to learn, that's an important question. We should understand that. We should have an understanding of the big picture. Yeah. Let me see here. Greta Aguilar, grammar is an essential part of learning English. I couldn't agree with you more. It's the foundation for speaking and understanding English. Thank you, Greta, for that comment. I agree 100%. So how much do we have to teach? Let's take a look. You see this book here? This book is more than 25 years old. It's a classic. It's called The Grammar Book, an ESL, EFL teacher's course. It was written by two very famous people. I have the pleasure of knowing both of them, more one than the other. Marianne Celsa-Murcia, and especially Diane Larson Freeman, who a lot of people call the Queen of Grammar. And she's the specialist who created the term grammaring as the fifth skill, We're not going to talk about that today because you could spend a whole 50 hours talking about grammaring. But she wrote a book on grammaring back in the year 2003, and she talked about grammar or grammaring, using grammar for communication as a fifth skill, and that's how important she thinks grammar is. She hasn't changed her mind. Yeah, and so this book has 1,000, at least this edition that I'm looking at, has 1,289 pages of grammar. So can you imagine that? Now, if you're a teacher and you're thinking, wow, is that all I have to know? Do I really have to know 1,289 pages of grammar to be able to teach and help my students? You're going to be like, oh my goodness, that's a lot of language. How am I going to absorb a 1,289 pages of grammar? That can be pretty scary, right? But, you know, fear not. Here comes a superhero to the rescue. Fear not. You know, relax. Don't worry. Take it easy. Okay? Relax. You don't have to know 1,289 pages of grammar. Plus, that wouldn't be very helpful anyway for communication. The good thing about language is, if we focus on the right things, then first of all, we make it easier for ourselves. We lower the anxiety level. Yeah. We don't have to worry about, excuse me, I'm looking at the page, and then we have this, at least in the US, we've got these commercials popping up every so often on YouTube. Anyway, but we can condense it. We can focus on the essence of the language. And when it comes to grammar, according to Grammarly is well known for its focus on language, 2024, the most common tenses are basically 12, okay, in the language. Present, past, future, particularly present simple, present continuous, present perfect, present perfect continuous. Past simple, past continuous, past perfect continuous. Future simple, future continuous, future perfect continuous. So those are the tenses, right? We also have the conditionals, but essentially that's it. Now it is you can do a lot of it, but it's not as overwhelming as thinking about a book with 1,289 pages. Okay, number one. So that's number one. So we have to understand the big picture. Second, according to the CK-12 Foundation, 95% of everything we write and everything we say is based on the most common parts of speech: nouns, adjectives, verbs, and adverbs. Okay, that's good to know. That's an interesting fact. And then according to the University of Ottawa in Canada, the most common parts of speech, we add 4 more: pronouns, prepositions, conjunctions, and interjections. So see, in 3 slides, we just broke it down quite a bit. This is the 4th slide. According to Walden University, which specializes in doctoral studies as well, okay? The most common tenses when we write when we engage in academic writing, we have the 3 common tenses: simple present, simple past, and present perfect. And I'm talking about academic writing. I remember when we used to have teachers at ETiP, and we had an academic writing course, and we were working with academic writing. I think it was a Pearson book. And teachers, we had teachers who were very devoted, very dedicated, and they did a fantastic job. But it was a very hard course to teach because it was a lot of work. But again, if you think about it, if you break it down, it becomes more manageable. If you think about what we need to focus on, okay? And then, of course, if you're taking doctoral studies, you need will. So if you're looking for a PhD or a doctorate in a particular field, not only will you use the first 3 common tenses, but you'll also use will, okay? And then sentence types, and again, we're looking at the nature of language first before we go into the teaching. There are basically 3 sentence types: the simple sentence, which we start off with at the A1 level, according to the Common European Framework; the compound sentence, which we start working on when, I should probably keep these on. I look smarter. The compound sentence at the A2 level, okay, or pre-intermediate, and then the complex sentence, which we start teaching at the B1 level. So we have plenty of time to be able to work with these structures. Okay, And if we look at a simple sentence is basically one independent clause, subject, verb, complement. So here we have examples of subject, verb, Lisa works, subject, verb plus object, Lisa loves Chinese food, subject, verb plus adjective, Lisa looks nice, subject, verb plus adverb, Lisa works hard, and then subject, verb plus noun, Lisa has a house. Now we want to expand on that. We want to change it into the past tense. It's the same structure. It doesn't change. So Leo messed up. Leo loved the movie. Leo looked tired. Leo tried hard. Leo owned a Honda. And finally, if we want to add the complement, right? So this is how we can actually work with our students so they can think, right? Lisa works. Where does she work? Lisa loves Chinese food. How much does she like it or love it? To what degree? Lisa looks nice. When does she look nice? How does she look nice? Lisa works hard. When does she work hard? Lisa has a house. Where is the house? Okay. There we go. Lisa works. Where? At Telefónica del Perú. Lisa loves Chinese food so much. She loves Chinese food. It's her favorite food. Lisa looks nice. In what? In white. Lisa works hard all the time. And Lisa has a house in San Martín de Porres. Okay? That's it. So, yeah, we can see grammar as a monster, or we can look at the essence of the language, how it relates to the language. And that makes it easier for us because we do have to be informed. That's one of the first principles, right? If you're going to teach grammar, you need to know it. You need to be informed. You need to know how it works. And you need to be able to do that so you can simplify it and break it down for your students, for your learners. Now, quantity and complexity, remember we talked about that? Okay, so when we start teaching language and we start focusing on grammar and simple sentences, we start off with a sentence like the first one. I live in Lima, Peru. That's 5 words. Right? But eventually, it is possible for us as we learn more grammar and, of course, vocabulary. Vocabulary is fundamental as well. But that's another talk. I'm focusing on grammar today. Then the amount of language that we produce and the complexity of the language, the sophistication, which is probably a better word, the sophistication of the language that we use increases enormously. So here, for example, look at the second sentence. Apparently, the process by which we initially engage students in a typical lesson is not as simple as it may seem, since it requires a repertoire of elaborate strategies and techniques that take time to learn and practice before they can be fully mastered. Now, that sentence has 44 words in it. I think the longest sentence I ever used in a book of mine had 72 words in it. And so you see, as we have more grammatical resources at our disposal, our language enriches. It increases in amount, it increases in sophistication. And that goes hand in hand as we, develop our proficiency over time, okay? All right, so we got to teach grammar, essential. That hasn't changed. It's not going to change. Don't worry about what people say because, fads come and go, right? Again, as I said before, there was a time when people were calling for grammar to be eliminated. They said, grammar's not important anymore. Listen, that was 30 years ago. Actually, I remember a famous speaker also, who I know, I'm not going to say his name. He said, English is going to lose importance. It's not losing importance. It's almost 30 years later. It's still as important as it ever was. The same thing with grammar. Grammar is not going to lose its importance. It might change in the way we work with it. And today we're going to see how that works, especially in the virtual world. But grammar is as important as it ever was. So we should continue teaching it, but we have to teach it effectively. Now, over the course of 11 years at the school level, right? You have primary and secondary. So in Peru, it's 11 years. In the US, it's 12 years. If you teach 2 hours a week, which is the minimum, the bare minimum, that's about 72 hours a year if you're looking at a 36-week school year. That's 792 hours over 11 years, okay? Now, if you increase the amount of teaching to 4 hours a week, that's 1,584 hours of teaching English or learning English over the course of 11 years, okay? At the school level. And if you increase it to 10 hours a week, which some private schools have, and more have. That's 3,960 hours of language learning over the course of 11 years, from first grade all the way to 50-year secondary. Now, remember, we looked at the Common European Framework. So look at the hours. This is from the University of Cambridge, by the way. I didn't put the quote, the citation, but this is from the University of Cambridge. This is an estimate of the number of hours that we need, more or less, to expose our students to learning when it comes to one level to another, moving from one level to another. So if you want to reach an A2 level, consolidated A2 level, you have to be in a learning environment for at least 200 hours, okay, classroom instruction. If you want to be in a B1 level or reach a B1 level, it's about 350 to 400 hours. B2 level, minimum 500 to 600 hours, and C1 or advanced level, 700 to 800 hours. Okay, those are the minimums. Now remember, those are the minimums if and when everything is going for you, right? So if the teacher is well prepared, the methodology is correct, the course materials are excellent, the students are motivated, you know, technology, we have a lot of resources in the classroom, the environment is fantastic. If everything is going for you, this is an estimate. Right? Just being in a classroom for 10,000 hours doesn't guarantee that you're going to learn either, if the conditions are right. So that's something just a little reminder, just to let you know. Now let's look at the methods of teaching grammar. The methods, have they changed? I mean, are they any different from when some of us started teaching 30 years ago? Almost 30 years ago. It's going to be 30 years ago for me next year. So have they changed? Okay. Let's look at the methods. So we looked at the language, the essence of language. My first question to you, true or false? Grammar must always begin with a presentation. Presentation, of course, means explanation, right? Formulas, examples on the board. Is that true or false? What do you think? Let's see what everybody has to say. Let's see. Plumwater says there are students who pick up the grammar just in the input. That is correct, especially when they're younger. Okay, because the way we learn and the way we process input varies according to different stages of cognitive development and age. And so, yeah, that can change. Learning styles change over time as well. That's a very good point. And then, let's see. False. A lot of people say false. No, false. No, 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 no. Okay. Some people saying yes, but most of your guests are saying no, false. No. Okay. All right. All right, let's take a look. That is actually false, especially now, especially in the year 2024. It doesn't mean that you can't use a presentation, but it doesn't always have to begin with a presentation. Okay. Let's watch a video. And this is a video from the practice of English language teaching. And so that's a Pearson video, teacher training video. And let's watch a video. Let's see what steps the teacher takes in the lesson and what is the purpose of each step. And we're going to see if she does begin by presenting the lesson with a grammar explanation or not. So it's interesting. It's a short video. We're going to start with a shorter video. Okay, let's take a look here.
Listen, this is a story about me, my story, this weekend. Okay? Are you ready? Listen, just listen. Don't speak, just listen. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Ready? Okay. Tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to buy a present for my son because it's his birthday very soon. On Saturday, I'm going to have lunch with my daughter, and on Sunday, I'm going for a walk with all my children. Okay? Again?
Again, please.
Tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to buy a present for my son. Which one? This one. Okay? Yeah. Because it's his birthday very soon. No writing. Don't write. Just listen. Listen. Okay. Tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to buy a present for my son because it's his birthday very soon. On Saturday, I'm going to have lunch with my daughter. You know my daughter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to have lunch with my daughter, and on Sunday, I'm going to go for a walk with all my children. 3 ideas. Tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to buy a present for my son. Listen, and watch, look. Tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to buy a present. What's this word? Okay, watch again. Tomorrow afternoon, I am going to buy a present.
Vaya.
Aha. Tomorrow afternoon, I am going to buy a present. What's this word?
Vaya.
Uh-huh. Tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to buy a present.
present.
Buy a present, okay? Tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to buy a present for my son. How many words?
12.
All right. Now that part where it says after she had the students practice with her own examples, with the example she gave, and then they went off and they practiced on their own. That's something I would have liked to see, because one thing is to, practice with the examples that the teacher gives us. And then she said the students then came up with their own examples. That's something you always want to see from your students. So that's something I want to throw out there. We're going to talk about that more later. But I'm going to say that now so that it starts coming to you as a initial idea that we're going to develop a little further later on. Okay, let's look at the steps below and match them to the activities in the lesson you just observed. Okay, so we have 4 stages: input, analysis and noticing, clarification, controlled practice. Those are on the left. On the right, these are the activities that the teacher carried out in the class. A, the teacher tells the students to discuss what they just heard. B, the students create similar sentences of their own. C, the teacher models the sample sentence, visually explains it, and has students repeat. She does the same with the other sentences. D, the teacher tells a story about her weekend. Students only listen. So what I'd like you to do, and we'll do it in about 60 seconds, is try to do it a little quickly, because you got to be careful with Leo Mercado. He loves this kind of stuff so much. I love this kind of stuff so much. I could be here all night, and I'm not going to keep you here all night. So I need to stay on a strict schedule here and manage my timing a little more effectively than usual. So, okay, I'd like you to match the stage of the lesson on the left to the activity that the teacher carried out on the right. Okay, let's do it in 60 seconds. Okay, input, is that A? The teacher tells students to discuss what they just heard. Is input B? Students create similar sentences of their own. Is input C? The teacher models a sample sentence, usually visually explains it, and has students repeat. She does the same with the other sentences. Or is input D? The teacher tells a story about her weekend, students only listen. Put the number and the letter. Okay, put the number and the letter, and then we'll check in about. Look at Jose Ortega. Jose Ortega, he's got all those numbers down already. Jose, you're too fast. Melanie Diaz, my goodness. And Julie Mostacero. I'm glad I have my glasses on, so I can read these names. Marco Antonio Iga. Okay, he thinks number 1 is D. All right. Leonor Cruz, 1 is D. Elena Castillo, 1 is D, 2 is A, 4 is B, 3 is C. David Ortiz, 1 is D. Gion Kath, again, she's got her answers right there. You guys are writing too fast for me here. My goodness. I see Amelia writing, Maribel, Luz, Plumwater again. Plumwater, hey, I'm going to remember that name now. Kelly Diaz, Rosa Caro, Leti Cordero. Okay, very good. And then Danuta has all of the answers down. So does Miriam Lopez. Erlinda. Okay, Erlinda. And Beatriz. All right, very good. Everybody's got some numbers down. And Carito Betsabe Alvaro. I know that name. I've seen that name before. Thank you for joining us tonight. And Livia. All right, guys. Let's give about 30 more seconds. Okay, Beatriz Bustamante, 1B, 2A, 3C, 4B. And Gilbert, also the same. Luisa Glenda Talavera, the same. Okay. No worries, Maida. No worries. And then we have Miss Selva Semprún. All right, guys, let's take a look. Let's see what we got. Okay, one is the input. So first is the input, right? The teacher gave some examples. She told a little story about what she's going to do, what she's going to do with her kids, all right? And then analysis. The teacher says, right? She goes like, talk about it, what you just heard, okay? And then hopefully during that process, while they're discussing, or they're having a discussion in pairs, they're going to notice some of the language. And then the teacher clarifies, right, with the fingers visually. And finally, the students, if they went ahead and did come up with their own examples, it's still controlled practice because the examples are very similar to the language that she came up with. So she's watching that, she's making sure that they're accurate and they don't make any particular mistakes. Okay, good job, everybody. Now you see here, I'm going to give you about 60 seconds to kind of imagine what the steps in a grammar lesson of today is made of, okay? So let's take a look. We get this, these ads that interrupt over here. Let's get rid of that. I want to see okay, skip, very good. All right, so what do you think? What do you think the steps are in a typical grammatical lesson, a grammar lesson? And you don't always have to do it this way. But what do you think are some of the steps? You could put 1, you can 2, and then name the step. What do we do during a grammar lesson? I guess that's a general question. You don't have to put it in any particular order. Tell me, what do we have to do during a grammar lesson, guys? Let's see what we get. Oh, we got people still writing down the letters. These guys, they got fantastic participation tonight. Okay. Wonderful. Well, yeah, Latin American teachers are like that. Yeah, there's no surprise. All right, very good. Okay, so what do you guys think? What are some of the steps that we see? I'll give you 30 seconds. Introduce the grammar using a vivid example. I like that word, David. Vivid example. Something comes to life, something that's relevant, something that students can relate to right away. Pre-teach. Okay, Heriberto. Let's see what else we got over here. Lucia, do the presentation, right? Introduce the language. Good afternoon, Glenda Cisneros. Okay, Jose, he talks about the 4 steps. Form, use, and examples. Catherine Pauca, very good. And then matching practice, giving examples is important. I agree, Gilbert. I agree, Anna. Introducing the topic, Amba. Okay, let's take a look. So we used to have the second part, the deductive part, all right? So clarification, restricted practice or use, and free practice. But nowadays, we do a lot of inductive teaching, or we should be doing a lot of inductive teaching. And we've been doing inductive teaching for quite some time now, a good number of years. That hasn't changed. The research shows it's good for students to get them to think, hypothesize, right, speculate, identify, right, the language and the input, talk about it, discuss it. Plus, it creates an opportunity for student talk time, right? And then we clarify, right? We listen to the students. Now, when students talk about language, when they're explaining the language in their own words, that's called meta-language. And that's a good thing to have in your classroom. Okay, it's a very good thing to have in your classroom. So let's take a look. Other words are input, analysis and noticing, production, presentation, practice, production. Sorry, that's a typo. That should be presentation. Presentation, practice, production, the 3 P's, right? So here's an example of input, and this is a place called the 5 points, little 5 points, really. This is like a barranco in the city of Atlanta, okay? And this is where a lot of people hang out. And, you know, it's very bohemian. You know, you've got all kinds of shops here and a lot of cultural events and all kinds of things going on over here, and people exhibit their culture. So here we have a little writing that could be served as input for an inductive lesson. A fun Saturday. Okay, so let's take a look at it. Last Saturday morning, I woke up early. Okay, I watched some TV first. Then my mom called me for breakfast. After eating, I played some games on my PS5. That was fun. Then I got on the internet and looked for fun places around town. I decided to go to 5 Points by bus. Once I got there, I visited the tourist attractions and shopped at the stores. After that, I watched the show on the street. Finally, I called my mom to pick me up. Okay, so this is something we can give students to analyze in pairs or in groups. Now here we're introducing grammar. What do you think the grammar structure is? And now when you're using input for an inductive lesson, you want a lot of examples of the target language in the input. So what do you think is going to be the target language for this lesson? What do you think is going to be the target language for this lesson? Simple past regular verbs, David Ortiz. In the past. Simple past, Luisa Glenda Talavera. Past tense, Monica Condori. Okay, reading comprehend. Well, yeah, so they have to read, right? And then in the reading, they want to find the target language. Simple past, Mirka Rodriguez. Maria, you guys are writing too fast. You guys are so wonderful participating today. Eduardo Gutierrez, Ale, Betty Cordova, simple past. Okay, all right. So yeah, it is a simple past, and here are the multiple examples. We have 9 examples of simple past verbs ending in ed, and hopefully the students will notice it and they will explain it. They will use, again, meta language to explain what they found together, right, in pairs or in groups. Excellent, everybody. Everybody, look at Ala and Lizzie and Chris and Megalit. Everybody's got it. Very nice. Okay. So there are times and moments for grammar presentations, right? So we don't always have to start a lesson with a presentation, but there are times and moments for grammar presentations. Now, a lot of us do work in environments where the 3P method is still used. There's nothing wrong with the 3P method. It's almost 50 years old, but that's okay. But remember, now we combine it with the inductive approach, right? Inductive method, right? To teach grammar. It's still effective. Guys, it's the year 2024 and it's still effective. Don't be ashamed to use it because everybody does. And the textbooks are pretty much aligned away according to 3P still today. This is an excellent textbook. It's called Top Notch. It's a fine book, okay? And it's a Pearson education book, okay? And so you can see the box. Now, in the old days, when we started teaching, right, 30 years ago, the boxes were bigger, all right? They had more explanations, more formulas, more examples and stuff. But I guess this gives us the flexibility to focus on more personalized examples. So we start off with the introduction, and then we have the control practice, right? Where students have to be very accurate. They have to get the right answers. And then there's a free, more open activity, right? So that's basically the structure of a typical textbook to this day, okay? So in general, I guess the principle would be use the inductive approach at lower levels when possible. Use the 3P method directly with new students, because remember, brand new students, very young students, really very young students, we use another approach, which is more physical, more game-like and indirect. But if you're looking at teenagers, for example, and you're going to use brand new, I mean, they've never seen English before, English classes before, or they're at a very elementary level, then you're going to use 3P method because they don't have enough language to process the inductive input. Okay. And of course, the 3P method, the research shows, they've done a lot of research on this. And the research shows that you definitely do need to use the 3P method with more complex and abstract grammar structures, especially at the upper intermediate level. Okay. Upper intermediate, you need to use the 3P method. Okay. That's something that that needs to be done. Okay. All right. Number 2, true or false? A successful grammar lesson is when students can do controlled exercises accurately. Now remember, controlled exercise, these are controlled exercises. Okay, is that true or false? A successful grammar lesson is when students can do controlled exercises accurately. True or false? Okay, I'll give you 60 seconds to think about it and to give you an answer. Paula says yes. Okay. Anahara says she uses the inductive approach all the time. Very good, Anna. Y says true. Erlinda Limaco says true. Monica Condori says true. David Ortiz says true. Marta, oh my goodness. Ooh, we got a lot of participation. We got a lot of participation today. All right. All right, everybody's saying true. Okay, all the guys are saying true. Gotta go forward, not backward, guy. Okay. No, it's not true. Sorry, guys. I mean, this is going to be a gentle disagreement. So this is going to be a very tender, gentle, kind disagreement. I would have to say false, because controlled practice is working with content, and this is important for the ministry examination, by the way. You have to be able to tell the difference between what students can do on their own and what students do with what the teacher gives them. And usually what the teacher gives them is language that they have to repeat, or language that they have to practice with from the script, or what we find in the textbook. So this might be part of a successful lesson, but it is not the definition or the epitome of a successful lesson. And we're going to see what I'm talking about. Let's watch a video. What steps does a teacher take in a lesson? And how do we know that the students understand the grammar? In the end, when you're teaching grammar, and I've been saying this for years, and I still say this in the year 2024 because it seems like we still haven't learned it. I'll tell you a story later, but how do we know the students understand the grammar? And this is when we're going to see what real success is. Okay? Let's watch a video. Okay.
One challenge when teaching grammar rules is that the students walk, encourage competition, and keep them motivated. So now we're going to play a game.
Okay, so this is a video from TEFL Videos. I like this video. I like using this video. I use like a million videos when I train people, especially when I do the preparation courses for the Mineiro courses. We not only focus on the strategies for the test, but we also focus on methodology, which is linked to what we see on the test. So we're going to see this, and I'd like you to focus on what the teacher does and what the students do. Okay? And then I'm going to tell you something afterwards.
Game. It's a race, okay? Woo! Right. So we have a list of words. You need to choose which column the word goes in. So for example, small, when we're comparing two things, does it become smaller or more small?
Smaller.
Very good. It becomes smaller. So what you need to do is write the full word, smaller, in this column, okay? Or in whichever correct column. And whichever team wins gets chocolates. Okay, so we're going to do an example. First one is an example. Okay. Ready? Ready?
Ready.
Set, go. Okay, and then I go back to the next person.
Okay.
Okay, good job. let's get rid of this. That was an example. Okay, are you ready? Yeah. Get set. Go. Oh, go. Pass it to the next person and get back to the end of the line. Go. Go, team. Uh-oh, it's close. Oh, go. Go. Oh, they're tied. 3 left. Go. Go, team. Let's go.
Okay.
Good job. Barely won. Okay, so let's check and make sure everything is correct. More dangerous. Is that correct? Yes. Yes. Good job. Nancy, can you give me an example with more dangerous?
Yes. Driving in Mexico is more dangerous than driving in USA.
In the USA.
In the USA.
Good job. More expensive, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Jack, can you use more expensive in a sentence?
My car is more expensive than BMW.
Whoa.
A BMW.
A BMW.
Very good. More useful. Is that correct?
Yes.
Very good. Amir, can you use more useful in a sentence?
Yes, my cell phone is more useful than my laptop.
Very good. Shorter, is that correct?
Yes.
Anna, can you use shorter in a sentence?
Yes, your skirt is shorter than my skirt.
Very good. Okay, this team is the winner.
All right, my question to you, do the students know the grammar? Do they understand the grammar? Actually, that's a tricky question because understanding one thing, we're going to see something, and we're going to look at 2 terms that the ministry also deals with or addresses. It's not the same to understand and to know, because knowing means you can do something with it, okay? Do the students know the grammar? Yes or no? What do you think? Julie Mostacero says yes. Jessica Lizarraga says no. Yulisa says yes. Ula says yes. Oh, we got a lot of yeses. A lot of yeses. Okay. The point of the matter is here, there's an expression in English, is the proof is in the pudding. That's where the flavor is, right? The proof in the pudding is in the pudding means it's what you see. That serves as evidence. In other words, what people can do, what you are able to see from people serves as evidence that that is correct or that is true or that is successful. And here, the teacher, see, when the students choose the right form, that's not enough, because that's one form of knowledge that may not necessarily help them when they need the grammar to communicate in the real world. That might be good to fill out a worksheet or a workbook. That might be good for a controlled exercise, but it's not necessarily good, or it's not necessarily an indication that they can use the grammar for communication. What is better, and what is the sign of a successful lesson, to see if your students have actually learned the grammar in the year 2024, is to hear them use it. And here we heard the teacher, she said, give me some examples. Okay, you know how more interesting instead of interestinger, right? Okay, you got that right. That doesn't mean you know how to use it for communication. Let me hear you. Let me hear some examples. One student said, the girl at first says, driving in Mexico is more dangerous than driving in USA. The teacher corrected her. in the USA. By the way, we don't say the USA, we say in the US. We don't say USA. Nobody says USA. Okay, unless they're at a sports event and they go USA, USA. That's the only time you hear USA. Otherwise, it's more appropriate to say driving in Mexico is more dangerous than driving in the US. Okay. The other student says my car is more expensive than BMW, and then the teacher corrects him and says a BMW. The third student says my cell phone is more useful than my laptop, and then the last student says your skirt is shorter than my skirt. And so on. And this is what you want to hear from all the students. You want all the students to give you an example as much as possible, as much as you can, or as many students as possible. And then you know that your lesson was successful. Then you know that they really understand and can use the grammar. Because in the end, I'm going to tell you something. If the students can't use grammar for communication, and anybody in the world, if you can't use grammar to communicate in the real world, the grammar is useless. You remember that book I told you about, that 1,298 page book, the grammar book? You could memorize the entire book. You could know every single page, the content of every single page. You could understand how the grammar works based on what you read in that book. But it doesn't mean you can use it for communication in the real world. And that's what grammar is supposed to be about. Grammar is supposed to help us communicate. Okay? As Dr. Jack Richards said, what I mentioned before, grammar has to be a communicative resource. Okay? Okay. So there's the evidence. Now, that's the difference between declarative knowledge and procedural knowledge. Declarative knowledge is knowing how the grammar works, understanding the grammar, doing exercises, understanding the formulas. But procedural knowledge is your ability to use the language for tasks, for doing things, for communication. In the end, our students learn both, but the more important one is procedural knowledge, more than declarative knowledge. Because everything we teach our students, right? Whether you're in a school or if you're in an institute, right? Like the ones that I used to work at, or if you're at a university, wherever you are, or online, we're teaching students a language so they can go out there one day and use it with real people in real situations to get things done. And if they can't do it, why did they study the language for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 11 years, if they can't use it? And that applies to grammar as well. It's very, very important. So yes, declarative knowledge they see or they develop, procedural knowledge they develop, but we want procedural knowledge more than declarative knowledge. Okay? Declarative knowledge is good for the workbooks and the tests. Now, how do I get students to practice and demonstrate the procedural knowledge? Dr. Rod Ellis, a world famous researcher who I've had the pleasure of meeting and inviting to my events, because I invited him to one of my ELT Horizons conferences when I used to work at ETiP. He says the best way to do it and the most effective way to promote second language acquisition is to do something called plan, focus on, form. In other words, it's disguised as a communicative activity. The students are thinking about meaning, but they need a specific form to do it. Without that form, they can't perform the task. And this can be for for speaking or for writing. Let's take a look at what I'm talking about. Let's watch a class. What structure, grammatical structure, do the students need to do the task correctly? Okay? Let's take a look. Let's watch this class. Very brief, but you'll understand what I mean when you finish watching it.
Okay, now we're going to talk about the future. Okay, we're going to make predictions about the future. So we're going to practice our speaking. We're going to do a little role play. Okay, it's going to be fun. One of you is going to be a fortune teller. Can anybody tell me what a fortune teller is?
A fortune teller is somebody that you pay and he tells you his future or your future?
Good, good. This is what we're gonna do. One of you will be the fortune teller, one of you will be the customer. Okay, so first the customer has to ask 2 questions. The fortune teller will answer the questions. Okay, and then you'll report to me.
You will become a famous person. I can see on TV. People will have trust in you.
Really? That's fantastic.
I heard some amazing predictions, but I'd like to hear from one of you directly. Ingrid, why don't you tell us about your future? What did they tell you about your future?
I was told I will travel around the world and visit many places. One place is London, which is my dream place, and I will also improve my English and basically that's it.
Okay. What is the grammar? 2 questions here. What is the grammar that the students use for the task, and how do they practice it? Okay, very important. So I'd like you to think about that for 30 seconds. What is the grammar structure students use for the task, and how do they practice it? Okay, so think about that for a second, and then I'd like for you to give me your answers. You're doing great so far. So let's take a look. See what we have here. I'm going to look at the list. Thank you, Neftali. She says fantastic. Neftali Canales. All right, very good. We're going to start getting future with predictions in pairs. Julie Mostacero is participating quite a bit as well. Everybody is, really. Jose Ortega, simple future tense with will. Okay, we got will, future simple tense, future tense. Okay, very good. Future predictions. All right, we got. Let me see. We got Danuta, we got Elmelia, we got Vanessa, we got Gilbert, we got Vilma, we got Maria, we got Elia, we got Liz, we got Greta. Everybody, oh, you guys are so smart. Juliana and Jace, Heron and Milagros, Budelia, Marlene, Fernanda, Jose Alberto, Ruth, Cecilia, Angelita, Rosa Luz Ferreiros. Everybody's getting the right answer. You guys are too much for me, man. I'm telling you. Wow, what a fantastic audience tonight. Let's take a look. So, what is the grammar structure students use for the task? It's the future tense with will. And any other language in the form of grammar and vocabulary is used to complement the dialogue. But the main focus is future tense with will. Now, they're worrying about a role play. They're doing a role play, right? So they're doing a communicative task in the form of a role play. One student is a fortune teller. The other student is a customer. Multiple opportunities to use the grammar in groups. Okay. And so they report after they do the activity, they report so they can switch partners. So again, you work, one pair works, they switch another pair, then they get together, they can discuss, or they can report to you. And the reporting is the example that, again, you're hearing from your students as you're circulating. Can they use the grammar correctly? Are they using it in a realistic way? Right? So being a fortune teller is fun, right? Being a customer. Some of us would like to, somebody to tell us about our future. So that's a realistic situation, especially in Peru, right? You have people who read cards and your palms and all kinds of things, right? And so, sure, why not? Have some fun. But then you want to you want to hear your students give examples, all right? So you want to call on Gregoria, you want to call on Ale, you want to call on Judy, you want to call on Carmen, you want to call on Cecilia, you want to call on Miguel, you want to call on Maribel, you want to call on Rosa Luz, you want to call on as many students as you can, and you want to hear from them what they talked about in pairs and groups. That is the evidence of a successful lesson. That is the evidence that the students know how to use the grammar. And that is the ultimate goal. Some of us keep on forgetting. I'm going to tell you later. I know I don't have that much time left, but this started a little late. But yeah, so some of us still think we're teaching in another age. And I've seen it on video. I've seen it on the internet. I'll tell you about them in a second. Grammar should be linked to communicative functions. What is the purpose of the grammar? How can I use this grammar to communicate? Okay. So we go back to communicative language teaching, basic principles. Noam Chomsky, he talked about grammatical competence, but grammatical competence in relation to what back then he coined as universal grammar, which wasn't very useful for communication purposes, right? It was just a body of knowledge that he theorized everybody shared, regardless of what, there was a certain universal grammar that everybody shared. Now, Del Hymes, an American back in 1966, 67, came up with the term communicative competence that we still use today. And then a Brit, somebody from the UK, Michael Halliday, a researcher, he came up with grammatical functions for communication. And Britain was perhaps the first place where communicative language teaching was applied within this context. Yeah? All right, so let's take a look. So when presenting grammar, the teacher can work together with students and co-construct the lesson. So we're starting to reach, we still have the part with the standards, but we're almost getting there. We're almost getting to the end. It should be about another 15, 20 minutes. Let's watch one more video. How does the teacher get the students involved in the presentation? I'm only going to show you a part of it. Now, when we do the training, because we have a program called ETiP, Professional Advancement Course, and when we prepare you, again, we watch this video completely. It's like a 13-minute video. It's actually a 45-minute video, but we work with a 15-minute version. Now, before we begin, does the teacher use a textbook? Number 2, does the teacher allow the L1 or Spanish in class? Number 3, do students help the teacher present the language? And number 4, do students understand the language? How do you know? That fourth question is vital to everything we do and everything we teach when it comes to grammar. Okay? Let's take a look here. All right, let's play. Teacher Freddie in Mexico. I like his. Okay. Leo, let's watch.
What did you do yesterday? At what time? 7. Okay. So let's see. This is yesterday. What, Diego? At 7. At 7. Seven o'clock. And then, okay, he ate breakfast. At what time? At 7:30. At 7:30. And then he went to school. He went to a school. What? School. He went to school at Diego, can you repeat the story for us? Yesterday, Freddy woke up at 7 o'clock. He ate breakfast at 7:30. He read and talked. And guess what? Jenny. This is Jenny. Jenny has a different story. Daniel has a different story. Yesterday, Daniel, let me see. At what? 7 o'clock. At 7 o'clock. At 7 o'clock.
Can I say that unless Velasco can give me the mathematics?
Okay, Velasco, please. Okay, excellent. Bolio,
He drank some milk.
he drank some milk.
Chocolate.
He drank some milk.
Chocolate.
But guess what? He didn't go to school.
Okay.
Ah.
Nice.
So he
went to the shop.
oh my God, he went to the shopping mall. At the shopping mall, at the mall,
He got his hair.
he
So.
he saw. He saw what?
A dog. A black eyed dog.
He saw.
Many dogs. Three.
He saw. He saw.
toys.
What? He saw toys. He saw toys. Okay, we're gonna stop there because I love this class because I love watching the 13 minutes of it, and then we do all kinds of things during the course. No, dummy. Okay, sorry. Okay. Not too smart, Leo, not too smart. Wake up. Okay. Does the teacher use a textbook? Number one. Does the teacher allow the L1 in class? Do students help the teacher present the language? And do the students understand? How do you know? Okay. So think about your answers to these questions one more time, and then we're going to go over the answers together in a moment. And then we're going to move on to the final part of the presentation. Okay. Let's see. What do you guys think? Okay, let me take a look. Yeah, I'm behind over here in the chat group over here. Okay. Does the CJ? Oh, you guys are answering already. Oh my goodness. Daily routines, very nice, Greta Aguilar. Okay, very good. No textbook, not a textbook, no L1 interference, flashcards with daily routines. No, no. Yes, no. No, no, no. Okay, very good. So let's take a look over here. Good, guys. So he doesn't use a textbook. He uses his own materials. And that's something that I think isn't done enough, because when we stick to a textbook, it limits our imagination, our creativity, and it also makes it very predictable for students. So it's good to use our own materials every now and then, just like it is to do some other things with the grammar, but the teacher doesn't allow the L1 in class, okay? And the students help the teacher present the language. They work with the teacher, right? He calls on students and they tell the story. He doesn't write the sentences completely. He puts pictures and the students tell the story, okay? And they're participating. And if you see the whole video, you get to see a lot of participation from a lot of different students. And I think, again, I can't say that enough. The way to really know if students can use the language is to hear them use it. They used it throughout the lesson. That is the evidence. That is the proof we need that the lesson was successful. Okay? I've been saying this for a long time. Unfortunately, some institutions, they kind of forgot that or whatever. And I'm talking about private institutions, some large ones too. I'm not saying any name, but that is the essence of teaching in general, and especially when it comes to grammar, because it's very easy to forget what we should be aiming for with grammar and go back into the traditional mode and just focus on declarative knowledge instead of procedural knowledge, which should be the goal. Instead of focusing on linguistic knowledge, focusing on communicative competence with grammar as support. That is the goal. That should be the goal. Okay? So inductive, deductive, you want to combine that. Grammar for communication, And we need to always look for proof of learning from as many students as possible. All right. Procedural knowledge. Make it enjoyable. Make it fun. Get everybody to participate as much as possible. Be efficient. Peruvianize. Use authentic content and adapt to the environment. These two last points here. Again, I've talked about this a million times. Peruvianize is to kind of change the context so students can link the new language to their own culture. And you've seen this before, right? Eva Young and Lucia de la Cruz, using them, getting stimulating a response from students. It makes it easier for them to understand how the grammar works if you link it to something from their culture, something from their own lives. We don't do that enough. I think, unfortunately, when we develop curricula, especially in the private sector, we focus on textbooks. And don't get me wrong, I love textbooks. There are very good textbooks out there. But I think if you're going to develop an effective curriculum, you have to combine a very good textbook, which is never perfect, with Peruvianized content that the teacher can make on her or his own, along with the school or the institution. And of course, authentic material, because authentic material is right from the very place where the language is spoken as a first language. Very, very important. Okay. All right. Learning online. Now, I did some observations, and this is what I was talking about in the beginning. And learning online, I observed like 15 classes, I guess. I decided to start observing classes. None from public school, by the way. They're all private institutions. And I was a little disappointed, to say the least. I think we haven't learned the lesson from the pandemic in terms of virtual learning, which in some places we're still trying to teach through a virtual environment as if we were in a physical classroom, and in a more traditional sense, working with PDFs and having a little cursor around instead of having it dynamic, taking advantage of the technology to make it more dynamic, more engaging, more student-centered, with TTT through the roof and little or no STT, no co-construction, and in the end, ultimately boring classes. That just trying to copy and paste what we shouldn't even be doing in the physical classroom doesn't work in a virtual environment. I think a lot of us haven't learned the lesson. Okay, we just can't repeat what work in a virtual environment. We're not taking advantage. That's why a lot of people criticize virtual learning, because they're not making good use of it. Okay, even in the US, a lot of people criticize virtual learning because a lot of people, unfortunately, can't teach virtually here in the US. It's easy to criticize if you're not making good use of the technology and you're trying to use it for something it wasn't made for, instead of you looking at it from a totally new perspective as a new channel or venue that can be very different and just as enriching as a physical environment in its own way. So that's something that I think we need to avoid. Learning online, we have to balance a strong platform that can make up a lot of the things so that we can focus in our live sessions on practice. So for example, on a platform, we can do presentations. The computer can do presentations. The computer can have the exercises. The computer can do a lot of things that we don't have to spend time on anymore, that we used to in a physical classroom. The online explanations, they can find explanations. And then when they get together with us, we focus on communicative practice and maybe clarification, right? If something still isn't clear. But we do have to choose the right platform, right? So for example, here, very briefly, just 30 seconds.
My name is Julia, and I am one of your teachers. Watch this video class with subtitles as many times as you need until you're able to understand it all without the subtitles. Then practice and enjoy watching it again several times.
Okay, so she's talking about, she's going to introduce the verbal auxiliary do. This, in a traditional classroom, we would be teaching. We don't have to teach this. The computer can do it. And then what we can do is clarify, fine-tune, and get the students to use it for practice. We can create our own materials. Okay, number one. Number two, there's also,
mouse handy.
Excuse me, sorry. Okay. So here, for example, this is also from the ABA program, which we also offer to teachers and students. You can find input with the target language and grammar presented in a very natural way, like a video. And you can use the subtitles in English and Spanish. You can see how the language works. And the good thing when you're online, you can watch it 200,000 times if you're a student. In a physical classroom, we can't do that. In the physical classroom, we cover grammar, we move ahead, we do pronunciation, we move ahead, we do the speaking, we move ahead. We don't go back and we don't repeat. So the online platform, if used correctly in a modern approach to teaching language virtually, in fact, it can be combined with a physical teaching as well. The students can do part of this online. They can watch the input. They can watch the presentations of the grammar, the more traditional 3P approach, right? They can do exercises like over here, for example, right? Let's watch. You see that? You see how they can do this is based on the reading and they choose the modals. You see that? And then the computer can give automatic feedback. We don't have to do this in the classroom. We don't have to do this in the virtual classroom. And honestly, if we combine our face-to-face teaching with a strong platform, then a lot of it can be delegated to the computer. This is a new age. Let's think like we're in a new age. Let's not think like we're still in the 1990s, okay? So a new revolutionary curriculum will take advantage of the technological resources that are available. We just have to be brave enough to take that step, okay? And here, for example, very quickly, 10 seconds, here we have the students talking about
what do we have
ceviche.
to do first? First, you need to.
And you have the cube. This is material that you can make on your own.
Into a pieces the
you
fish.
want the students to be able to use whether it's vocabulary or
you have to
grammar or
squeeze.
whatever.
Then you have to squeeze the.
Okay, and so this is what we have to do. Okay,
School.
We can find. Oh, mama, don't call me. We can find material. Okay, we can create our own material. And very effectively focus on working with our students for community practice. And that's what we need to do. We don't have that much time, do we? So we have to use our time effectively, find that balance. And that's up to the curriculum writers and, teachers, of course, if they can do it, but also the decision makers, right? Those who develop curricula, having a more revolutionary approach in this year, 2024. Not only the teaching grammar, but the teaching language in general, okay? Certainly, Elena Contreras, I will. Okay, so let's look at standards. This is the final part. And standards, and this should be about maximum 10 minutes. Standards, grammar, we have it in the school curriculum. In the Common European Framework or Marco Común, they don't say grammar. They don't refer to grammar specifically, but we need grammar to be able to advance from one level of the Common European Framework to another. We need grammar for international English proficiency examinations. If we're taking the Cambridge exams, the University of Michigan exams, the ELASH exam from the College Board, what have you, whatever the exam is, right? And of course, we need to know grammar for the TKT, the Cambridge University Teaching Knowledge Test, and the Minedo. Yes, Josue, Fabian Marona, use our time effectively. We don't have enough time. We never have enough time. But if we can work together, all of us, with our decision makers, the higher ups, the directors and the principals and all the curriculum writers, and we change our approach, then things will be easier for us as teachers. All right, it'll be easier for everybody, for the students too. And they'll learn more and they'll learn faster. All right, so that's what we have to do, but we have to be brave enough to do things differently. Unfortunately, I've seen too many cases where the videos that I told you about, things are done like as if they were being done 20, 25, 30 years ago, but through a virtual environment, which makes no sense. Anyway, this is from the TKT, and this is the grammar. A TKT, as you know, is a teaching knowledge test, okay? And it says here, read the text. For questions 1 to 7, read the text, match the underlined examples in the text with the grammatical terms listed A to H, mark the correct letter, A to H, on your answer sheet. There is one extra option which you do not need to use. This is from the TKT. The grammatical items: A is conjunction, B is preposition, C is adverb, D is superlative adjective, E is object pronoun, F is demonstrative adjective, excuse me. G is possessive adjective, and H is demonstrative pronoun. Okay? So let's do very quickly just two of these, okay? Number 1 and number 2. I'll give you about 60 seconds. What do you think number 1 is? For me, the best thing about the weekend is that I don't have to go to work. I like my job, but I have to spend all day in an office. And I'm someone who loves being outside. So what is number 1? Is number 1 a conjunction? Is number 1 a preposition? Is number 1 an adverb? Is number 1 a superlative adjective? Is number 1 E an object pronoun? Is number 1 a demonstrative adjective? Is number 1 a possessive adjective? Or is number 1 a demonstrative pronoun? And Julissa says D, superlative. Luisa Glenda Talavera, D. Jacqueline Osman, D. D. Okay, guys. Okay, good. What about number 2? What about number 2? That looks about right. That looks about right. Thank you, Charito. Now that lifts my spirits, you know. That motivates me. Thank you. I appreciate that. That nice feedback. What about number 2? What do you guys think about number 2? Everybody agrees. Number 1 is D. Excellent. What about number 2? 2 is G. Okay. And that was, who was that? Let's see, I want to give you credit. Where are you? Where did you go? Yeah, so many people participate. My goodness. I lost you. Okay. Evelyn Giron. She says number 2 is G. And Eduardo Gutierrez, G. Lucy Pacheco, G. Okay. Marco Antonio Iga. Okay. Very good. So number 1 is D. Number 2 is G. And you get the idea. So we do have to know grammar for our teaching exams as well. All right. And we're going to do just number 14. Okay. So here you see an example of a statement, and then it asks you, what is the purpose of the grammar? This is quite nice. Number 14, you're quite wrong. These examples show that quite can be used to A, modify adverbs, B, express a negative idea, or C, to strengthen or weaken adjectives. What do you think? Number 14. Right, number 14. Everybody's good on number 1 and number 2 from the previous page. Anybody on number 14? Maybe I'm okay. Oh yeah, you guys are answering. I'm sorry. Okay. C. Okay. All right. Let's take a look. We got C and A. It would be C, to strengthen or weaken adjectives. Very good, everybody. So you see how we do have to understand the role of grammar and what grammar looks like. That's why it's important for us not just to know the rules, but know what the language looks like when we're using it, because they go together. We can establish the purpose of the grammar if we can see how it's used, and if we use it ourselves, or if our students use the grammar. Okay? All right. Let's take a look at the Minedo exam. Whether it's ascenso, nombramiento, they have general characteristics. The contents are slightly different, but the essence is the same. Focus on 4 skills, sub-skills, language forms, language functions, language application, the stages, the aims, or the purpose, right? For each stage of a lesson. They look at assessment. They look at ELT terminology. You have to know what some terms mean, inductive, some approaches, some methods. And then sometimes you have to know how to analyze a class. That's why we also analyze classes, because we see what is strong, what is done well, and we see what could have been done differently, or what could have been done more effectively in another way. So teaching analysis and feedback is also part of the Minedo exams. Okay. And a lot of the questions are, which is the most appropriate, which is the more appropriate, which is the least appropriate, which of the following is she or he applying here, which of the following is better, which of the following is appropriate to, which of the following language functions is used, which of the following activities, and so on. This is the language that you see when they ask you questions on the ministry examination. Okay? And the strategies are not that many that can significantly improve your ability to pass the test. I'm happy to say we have a very good record of success in getting people to pass the exam. We've trained hundreds of people, and you have to look for keywords essentially. Odd manner, process of elimination, knowing your standard procedures for teaching, because they won't deal with things that are overly creative on the exam. They're going to be a little more conventional, and you'll look at the stages of a lesson. That's why when we work with you, we look at different stages of a lesson, what the typical teaching steps are when you're working with reading, when you're working with listening, when you're working with grammar, when you're working with vocabulary, when you're working with pronunciation, when you're working with writing. What is the standard procedure for each? What are the stages of the lesson? And what are some best practices? So all of this we look at together to improve your ability to get the right answer on the exam for each and every question. Okay. And I think I'm running out of time. So I'm going to do two or three examples, and then I'll call it a day. Number 6, this is from our previous exam, of course. David wants his students to talk about real possibilities in the future using first conditional sentences. He has planned the following activity as the first step of his lesson. The first thing he does, the teacher puts the students in groups. Each group gets a set of sentences which have been split into parts. For example, if I don't study, I won't pass the exam. The students have to match 2 slips of paper to make a complete sentence. When all of the groups are finished, the teacher elicits the correct sentences and writes some of them on the board. The teacher writes the following questions on the board. How many clauses do you see? How does the conditional clause start? What tense is used in the conditional clause? What tense is used in the main clause? And when do we use this type of sentences? The students discuss their answers in groups. Then some volunteers share their ideas with the rest of the class. Then the students do some exercises about the real possibilities in the future using conditional sentences. Finally, the students create their own examples. Now, I'm going to give you a little hint. All those steps there match what we saw at the beginning, during the beginning of this presentation, 100%. It's the same thing. You see what we talked about? Teaching inductive and deductive. This is the same thing. Now, my question to you is, which approach is David trying to promote? So what is the main characteristic here? The first thing you want to do is, when you're looking at the procedure, what are the first steps? Does the teacher offer an explanation first? Is there speculation on the part of the students? So when you're looking at methods and approaches, each method and approach has typical characteristics. Okay? So what do you think? Is it an inductive approach? Is it a deductive approach? Or is it a functional approach? Put 68 and the letter. 68 and the letter. Here we got different answers. Deductive. We got A, B, C. Now remember, look at the clues. Look at the first steps. The teacher gives the students samples of language. That's the first thing the teacher does. There is no explanation here first. Then the teacher wants the students to talk about the language that they put together. Okay? Now don't worry. If you do train with us, I'll help you identify it more easily. But this is an inductive approach because the students are given input. They analyze the input. They put it together. Then the teacher asks them about the language. They speculate, they discuss, they talk about it. Then they share their answers. Then they do control, and then the teacher clarifies. Clarification, control practice, free practice. This is a typical inductive lesson. You go from inductive to deductive. This is the main focus. You want the students to think, you want the students to speculate, you want the students to hypothesize. This is a typical inductive lesson, and that's why the correct answer is A. Don't worry if you didn't get it. That's why when we train, because we're offering a course, it's called ELT-PAC, and it trains you for the ministry examination. We teach you how to identify the characteristics of a lesson very easily. Let's look at this one, 75. Jessica handed in the first, so Alonso wants to assess the written production of his third graders. Again, this is from a previous version. Since Father's Day was celebrated last week, he tells them to write a paragraph about the activities they did during that day. The best paragraphs will be published on the bulletin board. Jessica handed in the first draft of her text. On the last Father's Day, my family and I prepared a delicious lunch. We spend a good day. We invite our relatives. On the morning, we clean the house, do the shopping, and cooked. On the afternoon, we eat and danced. It was nice. So my question to you is, what is this in the present, the future, or the past? First thing we have to define right now. Present, future, or past. Let's see what we get. Present, future, or past. Oh, you guys are putting the answers already. Okay. So this is, yeah, okay. So you guys are putting the answers. You guys are too fast. You're too fast for me. But look, so first thing we look at, which of the following aspects should the teacher prioritize in the revision of the text? So the feedback, right? So look at where the mistakes are. How many errors, attempts? What is the purpose? They have to write about the Father's Day that passed. So the student's telling a story of a past event, the Father's Day, what she did for Father's Day. And most of the mistakes you see here, this is typical, right? When we're teaching the past tense, they write in the present. So it should be verb tense. Punctuation is not the main aim of this lesson. Prepositions are not the main aim. The student has to write about Father's Day, which was celebrated last week. So we have to use the past tense. That should be the main focus, okay? The past tense is correct. Last one, I promise. Belinda students are participating in a guessing game in which they have to give descriptions of people and places and things. Descriptions. Which of the following grammatical structures is most appropriate for the language function describing people, places, and things? So descriptions for people, places, and things. When we describe people, places, and things, do we use adjectives, adverbs, adjectives, or prepositions? So the function is description. And again, that's why communicative function, grammatical and communicative function are important. Why do we use adverb? Why do we use adjective? Or when do we use adjectives? When do we use adverbs? When do we use prepositions? And everybody's getting the right answer. Well, actually, no, we're getting it mixed. Well, most of you are putting down D. So the correct answer is B, adjectives. And we're going to skip the rest because it's time for me to end. I could be here all night though, okay? But look, my point is this. Let me tell you about a story to finish. I observed a class once and the teacher was teaching the past tense. And he wanted it to be more physical, more kinesthetic, right? Or a total physical response. He wanted to see if the students understood the past tense. He had 25 students go up to the board in less than 3 minutes. Each one had to write a personalized example of a sentence in the past tense. Guess what? Of the 25 examples that I saw on the board, all 25 were correct. They were accurate. They were well written. To me, and I remember to this day, to me, that was proof as an observer, because I was a supervisor at the time, or maybe I was a the academic head of the branch or the branch manager. To me, that was evidence that the students knew how to use the grammar. And time again, I can't say this enough. The evidence of a successful lesson is what we get from our students, their performance. Yes, what we do is important when we teach, but what is more important is what the students demonstrate to us, what we see from them. Only then can we know if they really learn the grammar, if they can use the grammar for communication, when they're working in pairs, when they're working in groups, when they're reporting, when they're having a group discussion, when they're doing a role play, when they're coming up front of the board, when they're doing the games. When we hear from them, or when we see them write accurate examples of the grammar being used in a realistic, real world fashion, then we know it works. When we know we were successful. Grammar should be taught efficiently. You don't have to spend an hour on grammar. Grammar can be taught very quickly. It can be taught in as little as 5 minutes if you want them to understand the concept, if we are efficient. And then the rest is practice, of course, right? Grammar is for me communication or it's no good. Remember the book? I could learn a whole book on Spanish grammar. And if I can't, just knowing the rules, knowing what's in that book, understanding the concepts, doesn't mean I can use that for communication. Declarative knowledge is good, but it's not sufficient if we don't have procedural knowledge. Procedural knowledge is more important. And online learning, once we have people brave enough in any country, not just Peru, in the US, online learning, when we are brave enough, finally, somebody's brave enough to change the whole approach and revolutionize online learning so that we can take real advantage of it, then you'll see the results will be very different. But we can't copy and paste what we did traditionally in a typical classroom and try to do it ineffectively online. Finally, contextualize. Have your students work with you. Contextualize, Peruvianize. Use authentic material. That perfect combination. Great textbook, but it's not perfect. Peruvianized material and authentic material combined together will lead to more effective learning. And finally, you got to have fun. That's what you got to do. You, as a teacher, have to be as motivated as your students. You got to feel great about what you're doing with your students in class. You got to have fun. They have to have fun, of course, but so do you. And so when everybody's having fun, when everybody's feeling great, when everybody is motivated, when everybody has their spirits up high, everything gets easier. Students participate, students produce language. You feel great. And remember what the greatest feeling for a teacher is. When you felt that your class was a great success, your students were happy, you did a great job. There's nothing like feeling that sense of satisfaction when your students leave happy and they didn't want the class to end, and you know you did a great job. And that's why our work is so challenging, because we have to do that every day. Every day. Nobody else has that job. Nobody in the world has the same line of work that we do. That's why our work is so challenging, so difficult, but so enriching, because we have to have that magic happen each and every day. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure being with you as always. And I see a lot of warmth. I'm getting a lot of warmth over here as always. And Mariela says, Mariela Condorena, Mariela Condorena says, please hold on, don't go anywhere. There's some surprises coming up. So thank you. It's an honor being with you tonight, as always, and an honor. And I'm very grateful to English teachers in Peru for the kind invitation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mercado. Nice to meet you and good to see you again after a long time. Thank you very much, and we are very grateful for this wonderful presentation. It was very useful, and it will be in our rooms and for our students.
There are three questions. I don't know if you have the time. I hope you
Of
have.
course.
Okay, so I will read the questions for you and then you will answer them. Okay, so the first question is, what's the best way to teach grammar to preschool and elementary students? That's the first question.
Okay. So the good thing about preschool and elementary school, remember we talked about stages of development, and building up the language is a gradual process. We don't expect such young children, first of all, they're not prepared for it, but we have to offer students the opportunity to learn language in small amounts at a time. It's called distributed learning. So they learn over a period of time. And the first thing they learn are the basics. So the first thing they're going to learn is very elementary vocabulary about their personal domain around them and their use of verbs and other grammar, so to speak, which we won't identify as grammar, of course, because they're too young for that. We can't follow an approach that we would use with older students. It's just doing through a lot of games, just about enough language that they need to meet the curricular goals. So we can't overwhelm them. We shouldn't. Remember what we said about that book, that huge book with English grammar? We don't have to teach our students all of that. We just have to focus on the essence of grammar that is appropriate and that is useful for the different ages and the different stages of cognitive development. So what do my students need to know when they're in preschool, right? So it's very elementary, very basic language functions. And that's how we're going to introduce it. But we're not going to present it, right, like we would with older students. We're going to introduce it indirectly through games and total physical response activities that they will acquire naturally. And then we see if they can acquire, because it's the same rule. What I said before about hearing from students evidence of their learning, hearing them use the language. The preschoolers, of course, are not going to produce a speech, but they're going to use the language within their possibilities, within their ability at that age level. And if we can hear that from our students after every lesson, then we know we're doing well. In terms of elementary school, it's a little different. It's a little more challenging because nowadays what we try to aim for, at least what we should try to aim for, remember we looked at all those hours that we have? In some schools we have fewer hours, in some schools we have more hours. We have to ask our question as teachers about our role in contributing to our students' ability to reach certain goals, language proficiency goals, by the time they finish certain stages in their elementary education. So how much language should our learners know, our elementary school students know when they finish the 3rd grade in primary? How much language should our students know, and grammar specifically, if we're talking about grammar, when they finish the 6th grade? Now, this is something that should be clearly established. And so we work within that framework. And in every year, the 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, again, we're working with a certain amount of language that our students have to learn. We have those 36 or 40 weeks to get our students to learn a certain amount of language, within which we will find some grammar. And so it's the same principle that we saw in the presentation. We have to find what works with our students. And this is also talking to our students, what they like, what doesn't work for them, what they think is too challenging, which we don't emphasize enough. When I was at Euridiomas, we had a needs analysis that we did with students of all ages. And it was they filled it out on their phone, or they did it on the computer, or they did it on a tablet. And we were able to collect that information from thousands and thousands of students every month. And we knew what they liked, what they didn't like, their favorite activities, what they wanted to learn more. And we can do this with very young kids. And we should do it with very young kids. What kinds of activities they like, and we compare it with the results that we're getting. And so when it comes to grammar, okay, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and so on, I have to think, first of all, what is the best way for my students to learn that grammar? It's not going to be with a traditional explanation. It has to be through games, total physical response activities, indirect approach, right? And so on. And so when I plan my lessons, I have to ask myself each and every night, how is this going to work? And again, we have the textbook, right, to help us. We also, so we think about, will this activity work tomorrow from the textbook? Because a lot of schools work with textbooks.
And, the publishers tell us great things about their textbooks. But like I said, and I've always said, and I've always told my teachers that at ETiP Idiomas, textbooks aren't perfect. So we have to analyze what will work. If we think something isn't going to work so well, how can I change the activity or modify the activity? Or maybe I can replace it with one of my own that will work, that will engage my students, and that will get them to understand better than what I see on the printed material. So that's something, an analysis that we have to do constantly, each and every day. And we just have to aim for the same principles. How will my students learn? What can they demonstrate to me that they have learned? And how can they do it while having fun? Because the last thing we want is for students to think, present grammar in a boring and irrelevant way that they don't find interesting, that, will not help them. We have a limited amount of time each year, each school year, and we have to maximize the amount of learning in each year with the limited amount of time that we have. And so we have to really carefully analyze how we're going to get those goals to be met in a way that will keep our students constantly engaged and maximize their learning. I think that would be the way to go about it.
Okay, thank you for your great response. And the last question is, could you tell us more about the preparation for Minedu exams?
Sure. What we do is we combine, because in order to understand what they ask you on the exams, we just don't prepare you directly for the exams. Of course we do. We work with questions from previous years. We are very familiar with the format of the exams for both ascenso and nombramiento. So we know what they look for. And so certainly we help you with strategies on how to maximize your ability to answer these questions successfully. But in order to do that, we have to go back to the basics of teaching, because a lot of the items on the exam have to do with the essentials of teaching. So you have to understand methods and approaches. You have to understand teaching steps. You have to understand aims. You have to understand terminology. You have to understand the different stages of a lesson, how they work, what comes first, what comes next. You have to know some words, like, for example, meaningful, or you might have to know some words like we saw before, inductive versus deductive, and so on. You have to also know about corrective feedback. When do we provide corrective feedback? How do we provide corrective feedback? One of the basic principles that everybody should know is that when you're doing corrective feedback, and this appears on the ministry examinations, because that's what they expect you to do, is the first thing we don't do is we don't give them a direct correction. We don't give them the answer. And they will try to confuse you. They'll put a couple of options where, whether you realize it or not, the teacher is already giving them the answer, is not giving the student an opportunity to reflect. But the basic principle, teaching principle, and this is what we go over in our courses, again, the essential principles of teaching and learning, is the first thing what we try to do with corrective feedback is we try to get our students to reflect why, with the feedback from the teacher, and the teacher's trying to get them to think, what did I do wrong? And then they self-correct. And that's what we want to do in terms of corrective feedback. So there might be an item on corrective feedback, or there might be things like, how are we supposed to control students in the classroom, and so on. And all of these things are essential basics of teaching, which we cover in our courses. And we watch a lot of classes that are very good, which we analyze together. And every class that we work with, that we observe in the courses, they're related to what we see on the ministry examinations in one way or another. That's why we analyze them. We get the teachers to think about what they saw, what the steps are, why did the teacher do this, what is proof that the class was successful. And in some cases, the classes were not as successful. And if they weren't as successful, why were they not successful? And what could the teacher have done differently? All of that is tied to the content of the exams. So we combine all of the methodology that we combine in our courses helps you become a better teacher in general, but it's also tied to the language and knowledge domains that the ministry examinations test you for. And it's also tied to the question types and the formats. We do specific preparation for the exams. We get you to analyze how the information is presented on the exam and how the questions are formulated and how you can look for clues on where to find the best answer for the question. So we do that. And remember, we're looking at reading, we're looking at listening, we're looking at speaking and writing. They're all on the ministry examinations. We're looking at language assessment. We're looking at feedback. We're looking at teacher feedback and recommendations that you would give to a teacher, because that's also on the exam, and methods and approaches in general. So everything that is on the exam, we kind of focus on in our preparation course, and we combine it with a number of things. We give you a practice exam that you can practice on your own when you're close to taking the real exam. We give you an online course, the University of Cambridge TKT preparation course, because a lot of the things in that course are also covered in the domains for the ministry examination. So the similarities will help you, and you'll be able to practice on your own with an actual international course that focuses on the University of Cambridge Teaching Knowledge Test. And then there's a lot of content that we provide that helps you think about and understand what those principles are that eventually appear on the exam. And of course, you have the live sessions with me, whereby we talk about what you need for the exam. We talk about teaching principles, insights, practical insights, but everything is connected to what they will see on the exam. So they get two benefits. Of course, they get prepared for the exam, but they also get prepared to enhance their abilities to teach effectively and successfully with their students. So it's a dual benefit. And of course, they get the certificates. They get certificates from us, but they also get international certificates and so on. And so I think it's a very complete course. We've been very successful. I mentioned nearly perfect. I think you read nearly perfect, because that is the case. We have a nearly perfect record of getting our teachers prepared for the exam and passing these examinations. And we're very proud of that record. And we're, one of the greatest things is not only being able to work with our teachers, but seeing them carry out their goals and fulfilling those goals successfully. I think that's one of the greatest things about working with the teachers through these programs. So I would say that's what it's all about in general. And again, you get all of these benefits, and I think at an excellent price. Because one of the things that we always have been wanting to do as a company is make a contribution to to teachers' professional development in general. Not thinking about profit, not thinking about making money. Of course, we have to charge something, but thinking about making a significant contribution to the future of the country, to our teachers' professional development, of course, helping them with their goals, and also as a whole, making a significant contribution to the future of Peru as a nation.
Okay, thank you very much for that, especially for the courses that are available, for teachers and especially for ETiP teachers here. Okay, so please don't go, stay with us.
Of course.
Okay, and now Mariela, please, you continue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, dear Consuelo, and many thanks, dear Leo, for such an amazing presentation, for sharing all your knowledge with us. I know that the grammar is a difficult field, but now I have some questions for you because we have some surprises, as I promised. And today, quiero agradecerte, estimado Leonardo, primero por esta presentación, por todo lo que has compartido el día de hoy con todos nosotros. Y quisiera, por favor, que nos comentes, porque el día de hoy Leo tiene para todos nosotros una muy buena noticia para todos los que han seguido el día de hoy este webinar. Y quisiéramos, Leo, que nos comentes un poquito sobre las oportunidades de capacitación que se tienen con NIS Learning, porque el día de hoy, con mucha nobleza, creo que vamos a poder, gracias a ti, sortear algunas becas de algunos cursos que estás dando con NIS Learning.
Sí, muchas gracias por la oportunidad. Voy a cambiar al castellano. Efectivamente, un placer estar acá, y nosotros agradecemos sobremanera la gentil invitación que nos han hecho, y quisiéramos aportar con un sorteo de becas, específicamente becas para 2 cursos internacionales, becas completas, por supuesto, internacionales, sea para el curso de preparación para el examen, para Teaching Knowledge Test, que no solamente para el examen, digamos, ¿no? Porque es un curso digamos, que comprende los principios elementales, fundamentales de la enseñanza exitosa en el aula, ¿no? Entonces, como un curso de metodología que comprende todos los principios fundamentales de lo que es enseñar con la mayor eficacia posible, pero por supuesto también prepara para el examen TKT, ¿no? Con lo que comprende, que es el módulo 1, módulo 2, módulo 3. Aunque también hay una gama de cursos en línea digamos, una institución extranjera, específicamente de Estados Unidos, que comprende cursos de metodología o certificaciones, digamos, internacionales, que también están, o sea, la persona que gane la beca puede elegir entre el curso de TKT o puede elegir o un curso de metodología con la certificación correspondiente, ¿no? Entonces yo creo que van a encontrar cualquiera de las opciones que elija, va a encontrar una experiencia enriquecedora que debe servir de mucho. Ahora, nosotros como una institución que aporta y nos encanta trabajar con profesores, tenemos el ETiP, como acabo de escribir en inglés, ¿no? Que está disponible y que va a empezar un nuevo grupo el 11 de febrero. También tenemos exámenes internacionales con certificación internacional, específicamente certificados emitidos en Londres. Tenemos un curso de preparación para esos exámenes, ¿no? Una versión más, digamos, esencial, y más adelante tenemos una versión más completa, pero sí, también tenemos exámenes internacionales y también tenemos plataforma en inglés para aquellos que quieran desarrollar su inglés. Como va a haber un curso también más adelante de, digamos, preparación. Ese curso de preparación va a incluir una plataforma en inglés, entre otros elementos muy beneficiosos para aquellos que lo quieran tomar. Así que nosotros estamos muy contentos de poder contribuir, esperamos de una manera significativa al desarrollo profesional de tantos docentes que han confiado en nosotros y esperamos poder seguir trabajando en ese sentido con los mejores resultados posibles, ¿no? Porque a eso aspiramos, ¿no? Y como lo dije en inglés, eh, nosotros no pensamos en ganancias, no pensamos en ganar dinero, aunque se tiene que cobrar algo, por supuesto, ¿no? Sino más bien enfocarnos en hacer una contribución importante y estar ahí para que los docentes que desean o aspiran a desarrollarse profesionalmente lo puedan hacer con nosotros y estar seguro que vamos a hacer todos los esfuerzos posibles para ayudarlos a lograr sus metas, pensando en ellos más que nada, ¿no? Pensando en los docentes, porque de eso se trata más que nada, ¿no? Ofrecer estas oportunidades ayudando a las personas, ayudando a estos profesionales a lograr sus metas y, por supuesto, como también lo dije en inglés, contribuir de una manera significativa en lo posible al futuro del país, ¿no? Porque los docentes son aquellos que más influyen en el futuro de un país y, por supuesto, eso no puede ser la excepción en el caso del Perú, ¿no? Yo he trabajado a través de 2 años con tantos docentes, tanto del sector privado y especialmente del sector público, y de verdad que admiro su dedicación, admiro su compromiso y su amor de patria para hacer lo que hacen día tras día, que es el trabajo más exigente, el reto más grande que cualquier otra profesión, ¿no? Entonces, gracias a ustedes, querido docente, por aquellos que han confiado ya en nosotros y, por supuesto, aquellos que no lo han hecho todavía, espero que nos puedan dar la oportunidad. Estamos ahí a su servicio para cualquier cosa que necesiten.
Gracias a ti, querido Leonardo, más bien por compartir con nosotros esta oportunidad de capacitación, por estas 2 becas que estás otorgando a la comunidad de English Teachers en Perú. Y te comento que no solamente tenemos maestros de Perú, sino que por ahí también hay maestros seguramente que ya van a empezar ahí a chatear por YouTube. Tenemos maestros de México, Argentina, Chile, Puerto Rico, etcétera, que se han conectado el día de hoy. Sepan que igual en este momento vamos a compartir el exit ticket y deben de llenarlo, por favor, ya que con esos datos es que vamos a proceder a hacer el sorteo en vivo. Si quieren tener la posibilidad de ganar una de las becas, no pueden desconectarse, tienen que estar presentes. Llenan el exit ticket y continúan en línea aquí en el webinar, porque vamos a hacer el sorteo en vivo con todos los que han llenado el exit ticket. Solamente les vamos a dar 10 minutitos para que lo llenen, nada más que 10 minutitos, y con toda esa información van a colocar ahí sus datos. Nosotros vamos a proceder a realizar el sorteo, pero solamente vamos a dar por ganador a quien esté presente en el webinar en vivo. Si no está presente, si no dice estoy aquí por el chat en YouTube, entonces pasamos al siguiente Ibalagua. Entonces espero haber sido clara, por favor. En este momento voy a compartir. Querido Leonardo, quédate por favor un momentito más con nosotros. Tenemos varias preguntas que nos están haciendo por YouTube con respecto también a las propuestas que acabas de mencionar para que nos aclares un poquito también sobre la metodología, sobre el contenido de los cursos, para que tengan una idea más clara los maestros. Mientras tanto, querido Kurt, ¿estás por ahí?
Yes.
Te pido por favor que compartas el exit ticket y las instrucciones para el día de hoy.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. Once again, thanks to Leonardo for such an interesting webinar. I'm in charge to give you the exit ticket. As Mariela already said, this is really important for today's raffle. And here it is. I'm gonna do it in Spanish. HTTPS, todo en minúscula, 2 puntos seguidos, sin espacio, vienen 2 slashes, luego la letra C, U, T, P, sí, seguimos en minúsculas, punto seguido, L, Y, también en minúsculas, sin espacio, haces otro slash, y ahí empiezan las primeras mayúsculas, la E, la T, sin embargo, la I es minúscula, luego regreso a las mayúsculas, P, S, U, N, M, E, R, W, E, B, I, N, A, R, S. Yo creo que con esas indicaciones no vas a estar tan perdido. Remember that you only have 10 minutes. Well, I guess it's going to be only 9 minutes because right now I'm speaking. And try to do it consciously because, I mean, the email that you're registering is the email that we're going to send the materials from today's webinar. And the one that we're going to receive from the exit ticket, it also will help us to do the raffle today. And as Maria said, if you have chosen one, you just have to comment on YouTube chat that you are here by saying, here I am, present, or I'm the lucky one, or whatever. Just make us realize that you are present. Bye.
Thank you, dear Kurt. Please be careful with your email address. Yeah, it's important that you complete this information in an effective way, because if you make some mistakes, we can send you the materials, okay? Please, teachers. Recuerden, por favor, llenar de forma correcta, sobre todo su correo electrónico, porque a veces nos dicen, no nos ha llegado el material, lo que pasa es que se les va por ahí los espacios o algo más en el correo, y bueno, no les llega como debe de ser, ¿sí? Entonces, por favor, vamos completando, no se desconecten, terminan de llenar y manténganse en línea, por favor. Nosotros vamos a esperar aquí los 10 minutitos y pasamos inmediatamente al sorteo. Mientras tanto, querido Leonardo, regreso contigo para hacerte algunas preguntas. La primera de ellas es la siguiente. Por ejemplo, para los maestros que están en otros lugares, de repente, o en instituciones privadas, o tal vez no tienen exactamente como objetivo el pasar de repente el examen de nombramiento o ascenso del Ministerio de Educación de acá en Perú. Este curso, el NISE el TPAC, también tiene contenido de metodología que puede servir para el examen del TKT de Cambridge.
Claro, en realidad.
¿Está alineado?
Sí, claro, en realidad el tema es que si uno lo ve, es como la actividad que mencioné, el tipo de actividad que se llama Plan, Focus and Form, donde el alumno cree que todo está dirigido a la comunicación, pero está disfrazado, digamos, o disfrazada la actividad para que promueva el uso de una estructura gramatical en particular. Estos cursos digamos, ETiP, si uno lo ve, y no, nunca ha visto un examen de ascenso o de nombramiento, va a creer efectivamente que es un curso completísimo de metodología, ¿no? Porque comprende todo lo que es estrategias, técnicas, métodos, análisis de videos, es decir, son cursos muy completos. Ahora, lo que se inmersan tanto en esa experiencia, y esa es la idea, ¿no? Es como cuando uno aprende algo, un idioma, uno se olvida y no piensa de manera consciente, simplemente se compenetra tanto, se divierte tanto y aprende sin pensarlo mucho, ¿no? Entonces, acá en estos cursos, efectivamente, uno sale un mejor profesional de la enseñanza y está alineado efectivamente también con el TKT de la Universidad de Cambridge, ¿no? Entonces, en ese sentido, creo que el beneficio es para no solamente los profesores o los docentes en el Perú, sino también para cualquier docente. Hemos tenido docentes de otros países que se han unido casi a todos todos los cursos que hemos ofrecido y gracias a ellos, de verdad, sus enormes corazones, porque tanto han sentido ese enriquecimiento de sus conocimientos y su capacidad para enseñar, que han confiado en nosotros y de verdad para ello, por ello estamos tan agradecidos y están con nosotros, ¿no? De Colombia, de Ecuador, de otros países, ¿no? Es decir, la lista es larga y han estado con nosotros una y otra vez, a pesar de que para ellos no es, o ellos no buscan prepararse para el examen en sí, ¿no? Pero sí, son cursos muy completos, por eso tenemos esa doble cara, ¿no? Efectivamente, metodología, técnicas, análisis de clases, análisis de problemas, situaciones comunes que enfrentamos como docentes, etcétera, que uno dice, bueno, un curso completísimo de metodología. Sin embargo, digamos, está alineado con todo lo que pide el ministerio y a su vez también, para aquellos que quieran tomar un examen internacional con el TKT, también está alineado con ello, ¿no?
Justo va mi pregunta ahí, querido Leonardo. Por ejemplo, en los exámenes, creo que también es muy similar en el TKT. En los exámenes acá, no sé cómo, por ahí nos pueden comentar cómo es en México, en Ecuador, en otros países, los exámenes que toman el Ministerio de Educación a los docentes de inglés. Pero, por ejemplo, aquí en Perú son bastantes casuísticas, ¿no? Casuísticas de aula que suceden en una sesión de clase en donde el docente tiene que identificar qué tipo de metodología es la que se está aplicando, o qué tipo de enfoque, etcétera, ¿no? Qué tipo de actividades y demás, ¿no? Y en ese sentido, dentro del curso que nos estás compartiendo, hay también casuísticas, examen, porque justo estoy leyendo ahorita examen de práctica online, hay ese tipo
Sí,
de ejercicios.
sí, también. O sea, desde el punto de vista práctico, o sea, cómo se aplican los conceptos, no solamente tratamos los conceptos y los principios y lo demás, ¿no? Desde el punto de vista, quizás, la palabra teórico, desde el punto de vista teórico suena un poquito, ¿no? Pero también desde el punto de vista práctico, ¿no? Cómo se ve en la práctica. Y por supuesto también lo que es en sí el trabajo con contenido, sea para un examen como el TKT, que también está cubierto en este curso totalmente, como también el examen del Ministerio de Educación. Digamos, ahí vemos examen de práctica como si efectivamente estuvieran tomando ese examen, ¿no? Con preguntas reales alineadas con lo que van a ver, ¿no? Porque la idea es esa, ¿no? Que se vayan familiarizando con el tipo de contenido que van a ver, el tipo de preguntas, como hemos visto hoy día, qué tipo de preguntas suelen hacer en el examen, en los diferentes exámenes y lo demás. Y el curso en línea internacional para el TKT también es igual. Explica la esencia de todo lo que está detrás del examen, ¿no? Y de ahí vemos los ejemplos prácticos, ¿no? Son cursos muy completos en ese sentido.
Perfecto, perfecto. Entonces, felices nosotros porque ya vamos a ver quiénes van a ser los ganadores de esas dos becas para esos cursos de metodología, para que puedan elegir el que desean llevar. Muchísimas gracias una vez más, Leonardo. Una pregunta más. Mencionabas sobre el tema de la preparación para la certificación internacional y te comento esto porque justamente bueno, en realidad el Ministerio de Educación ha tenido diferentes programas, ha tenido becas nacionales, incluso algunos años atrás becas internacionales para salir del país, financiadas por el mismo Ministerio de Educación, pero que siempre han solicitado que el docente de inglés tenga como mínimo, ¿no? Por ejemplo, antes era B1 o hasta B2, ¿no? Pero certificado internacional de nivel o certificado, bueno, nacional o internacional de nivel. Sabemos que los certificados internacionales son los más valorados. En ese sentido, ¿cuál es el certificado internacional que nos comentabas? Se estaba promoviendo con NIS Learning y en qué consiste ese entrenamiento, ese training para poder dar este examen, para poder conseguir la certificación de nivel de inglés, que justamente ahora para los procesos de contrato y demás, pues se está solicitando mucho por el Ministerio de Educación.
Claro, hay dos tipos de cursos de preparación. Uno para aquellos que ya tienen el nivel y tienen que familiarizarse y orientarse sobre qué es lo que pide el examen de certificación internacional. Ese es uno, ¿no? Que es el que, debido a los plazos que se han dado en estos meses que se vienen, tanto en febrero y marzo, son cursos más reducidos, donde damos sesiones de orientación para que parte de poder pasar un examen, cualquier examen, lo sé por experiencia, porque he visto todos los exámenes que hay, es no solamente tener los conocimientos lingüísticos, ¿no? Sino también estar familiarizado con el tipo de examen y qué es lo que pide el examen y las preguntas y los formatos y los tiempos. Porque si tenemos, digamos, el nivel, pero no estamos familiarizados con el tipo de pregunta, digamos, las secciones, los plazos, los formatos, eso ya también puede influir en forma negativa. Entonces, tenemos un curso más corto para aquellos que ya tienen el nivel, pero tienen que pulirlo en el sentido de que tienen que tener la familiaridad con el tipo de examen que van a tomar. Por ejemplo, el Global English Proficiency Examination está dividido por destrezas, ¿no? Las 4 destrezas y lo que se llama language use, que es típico en la mayoría de exámenes internacionales, que es una combinación de vocabulario con gramática, ¿no? Entonces, y esas secciones se califican según los diferentes niveles del marco común europeo, como también hay una calificación universal o general sobre el rendimiento total, ¿no? Entonces, el certificado demuestra eso, ¿no? Las 5 áreas más una calificación general dependiendo de cómo fue el rendimiento en su totalidad. Ese por un lado. Entonces, debido a los plazos que se han dado, nosotros estamos ofreciendo el examen más sesiones de orientación y preparación, ¿no? Conmigo, es en un plazo de 5 semanas, 4 o 5 semanas, ¿no? Debido a que algunos tienen que tomar ahorita un examen. Eso quiere decir que ya tienen el nivel. El otro examen, perdón, el otro curso que es más completo, es un curso donde se desarrolla el inglés en sí, ¿no? Es un curso que tiene varios componentes. Tiene un componente en línea que prepara específicamente ya con ejercicios dirigidos para el examen. Tiene otro componente que es el inglés dividido en los diferentes niveles del marco común europeo, donde uno toma un examen de clasificación y lo pone en el nivel correspondiente, aunque uno tiene acceso a todos los niveles, ¿no? Es una plataforma de inglés. Y el tercer componente es una plataforma donde le ayuda al profesor con el tema de la fluidez, la pronunciación, la gramática, el vocabulario y lo demás. Todo eso, más sesiones de preparación conmigo, ¿no? Entonces es un curso un poco más completo, pero debido a la duración que tiene, ahorita no se está ofreciendo porque eso está para más adelante, porque tenemos entendido que debido al cronograma y el calendario, ahorita hay personas que van a tomar en poco tiempo el examen, pero eso sí se va a ofrecer más adelante.
Muchas gracias, Leonardo. Entonces, sí, justamente me comentaban también si quieren información. No se preocupen que como han llenado el exit ticket, espero que estén correctos los correos electrónicos. Vamos a enviar también la información de contacto y la información de los cursos justamente que está mencionando Mr. Mercado con respecto a todo el contenido, la malla curricular ya de manera directa. Seguramente lo van a poder consultar también a través de NIS Learning. Y bien, ahora sí, querido Leonardo, muchas gracias por responder a nuestras preguntas. Y vamos a empezar, ya compartimos el exit ticket, ya se cerró. En este momento vamos con Pamelita. Por favor, quédate unos minutitos más con nosotros para que pasemos al sorteo. Pamelita linda, si puedes compartir en este momento que tenemos para la próxima semana y después de ello pasamos ya al sorteo. Pam, estamos por ahí, a ver si la veo, Pam. A ver, Comparto yo entonces mejor porque creo que tiene algunos problemas con la línea. Y bien, para la próxima semana tenemos el siguiente webinar. Van a estar presentes con nosotros Cristel Oyola y Luis Guerrero, así que no se lo pueden perder. Dos grandes referentes de toda la implementación del currículo nacional y además excelentes especialistas, excelentes ponentes que ya han estado con nosotros en otros webinars y siempre ha sido un éxito y muy productivo todo lo compartido. El título de la sesión que se viene para el próximo sábado es metacognición, algo que a veces se nos hace difícil de trabajar, ¿no? Clave para resolver conflictos cognitivos. Así que ya saben, el próximo sábado a las 6 de la tarde tenemos ese interesante webinar. Y ahora sí, están todos súper invitados, por favor, así que no se lo pueden perder. Recuerden que ya es nuestra tercera sesión y que completamos las sesiones y vamos a poder tener también nuestra constancia de participación por todo el ciclo de webinars, así que no faltemos a ninguna sesión, por favor. Y ahora sí, ya estamos por culminar. A todo el equipo administrativo que está presente, por favor, vamos encendiendo las camaritas y a quienes están detrás de la pantalla saludando, a todo el equipo administrativo de English Teachers in Perú. Como siempre, muchísimas gracias por el apoyo y muchísimas gracias por esa motivación, por ese ímpetu de querer seguir fortaleciendo y aportando con ese tipo de eventos para la formación de muchos docentes del área de inglés, no solamente en nuestro país. Bien, ahora si nos confirmas, José, si ya tienes la data lista para que procedamos al sorteo, por favor, para que puedas compartir pantalla. Con nosotros va a estar con el sorteo José Ortega. Listo, ya lo tiene listo, ya lo podemos ver ahí en pantalla. Bien, chicos, ahora sí, por favor, ¿me ayudan? Vamos entonces. Vamos, Angelita Linda. Angelita Linda, por favor, empiezas tú. Ya nos están mostrando la cantidad. Indica, por favor, cuántos registros son los que tenemos.
Tenemos 646.
646 registros en este momento. Obtenidos a través del ETiP que van a entrar para el sorteo de 2 becas completas gracias a NHS Learning y Mr. Leonardo Mercado. Entonces, vamos, querida Zulamita, por favor, vamos a dar ahí la marcha para que se inicie con el sorteo.
Ok, entonces a la voz de 3. 1, 2, 3, go. Ya tenemos la ganadora. O es a los 3 o es la que sale.
¿Verdad que no quedamos en eso? ¿Va al agua? ¿Vamos con al agua o no vamos con al agua? ¿Qué nos dice Leo? Leo, vamos. ¿Ganadora o al agua? ¿Qué hacemos, Leonardo?
A ver, creo que podemos esperar 10 segunditos más. A ver, que se comunique.
El nombre completo, por favor, de la docente, querido Leo, si
María
me ayudas.
del Carmen Caraza Pérez. You have won.
Que
Please
sería
report.
nuestra primera ganadora si es que está presente.
Please acknowledge if you're there so you can win the prize. Let's take a look here. Yeah. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No sign. I guess we have to try with somebody else.
Vamos a tratar, lo que pasa es que también demora un poquitito
hay
el
un
lag de la
retraso, un retraso.
transmisión para allá, sí, porque
Hay un
si no,
retraso.
sí, si no va a ser la puritita maldad lo que les estamos
A
haciendo en
ver,
este
vamos a ver
momento.
acá. Si hay un
Esperemos
retrasito, a
un
ver.
minutito más, esperemos un par de
Lentes, a ver.
minutitos más.
A ver.
Y vamos a ver si está por ahí. Listo, parece que no, porque ya estamos viéndolo en el vivo. María del Carmen Caraza Pérez, gracias, querido Kurt, por apoyarnos en el chat. A los demás administradores, por favor, apóyennos en el chat. No, no está. Aparentemente no está, así que No está al agua. Ahí está el lamento que ya conoce. Querido Kurt, a ver, vamos a darle suerte a los teachers varones que siempre dicen por qué nosotros no salimos nunca. Kurt, a la voz de tres, tú por favor manda para la siguiente.
Okay, now we are on next one.
Y el nombre es, querido Leo.
Silvana Rosa Ciñas Rojas. You are the winner. The lucky winner
Y
of
un
the first
aplauso para
course.
ella. Esperemos que esté ahí presente. Tiene que decir, por favor, en el chat de YouTube presente a Silvana Rosa Ciñas Rojas para que sea la ganadora y pueda llevarse esta beca completa. Vamos a darle... Uy, ya lo vi por ahí, ¿sí? ¿Sí la vi? Pues que yo vi mal, pero vi Silvana Ciñas Rojas, dijo presente.
Presente,
Uy,
dijo.
y ahora sí, entonces un aplauso, ya se...
All right, congratulations,
Muy
you go,
bien,
champ.
ya está. Vamos entonces para la siguiente. A ver, y ahora quién. Consuelito está por ahí. Si está, no está. Creo que está todavía ausente. Vamos entonces, Angelita Bella. Angelita, a ver, pasamos para la siguiente. Tú. Vamos a la marcha de tres.
A ver, a ver, a ver. 1, 2 y 3.
Gracias, Angelita.
Ajá. Rocío Vanessa Pariona Huaraca. You are the second winner, the lucky winner tonight. You just have to hear from you, okay? Let's see.
Stay present. Ya recuerda que tiene que tipear por favor el presente en el chat. A Rocío Vanessa Pariona Huaraca. Querida Rocío. Vamos a ver si está por ahí.
Let's see.
Yo me quedé, recuerden por favor, que y esto pasa cuando dejamos de estar en el vivo, un ratito cambiamos la pantalla en YouTube, regresamos a la pantalla de YouTube y se queda donde lo dejaste, no corre. Entonces tengo que darme cuenta siempre que la línea de tiempo de YouTube esté justo al final para que continúe con la transmisión donde está el en vivo. Porque cuando la dejamos se queda donde la dejamos cuando cambiamos de pantalla. Regresamos y ya nos estamos atrasando del vivo. ¿Está por ahí? ¿No está por ahí? Parece que no. No está. Sari está ahí. Ahí está. Sari Ospina llevó también el curso algún curso contigo, Leo, es de Colombia, creo.
Ah, fantástico, sí, claro. Claro que sí.
Están súper atentos ahí. Ya, y parece que no está. Entonces,
All right, sorry.
vamos.
Go with the next one.
Next, dicen los teachers ahí, ya no, vamos, están llorando. No está. Vamos entonces, ahora
Let's go for the
sí,
next one here. Let's see what's going on.
vamos para la siguiente. Y ahora sí, la voz de tres, ahora vamos a ver. Listo, ya se adelantó.
Judith Elizabeth Montes Hoyos. Congratulations. I hope you're there. Make sure you make your presence felt over here.
Yeah.
All right,
Judith
Judith.
Elizabeth Montes Hoyos. A ver, vamos a ver si está presente. Nos vemos en el chat y verificamos. No está. Yo me quiero ganar, dice Dalila Reyes. Angélica Rivera, hay varios que están ahí esperando. Parece que no, ya. Los teachers sí, sin piedad, nos dicen next. Vamos a ver, no está. Hay una María del Carmen que ha dicho presente, pero creo que ya pasó. Judith Elizabeth Montes Hoyos. Recuerden que tiene que ser en el momento, por favor. Judith Elizabeth Montes Hoyos. Vamos. Lo siento, querida Yulisa, acaba de
Yeah.
decirme que María del Carmen Caraza tiene algunos problemas. Sí, pero son las reglas. No está,
All
así que
right, we're gonna try
pasamos,
again.
ajá, una vez más.
Maritza Mercedes Alejo Maraví. Congratulations. All you have to say is that you're in the audience somewhere. Let us know.
Vamos a ver si Maritza Mercedes Alejo Maraví está presente y si está presente, se gana la beca completa. A ver, querida Maritza, vamos a visualizar aquí en el chat. Recuerda que tiene que decir, por favor, presentes. Mael, teacher Joel Wilson dice, puras damas ganan, no es justo. Oh, igualito José Fabián Marona, pura women, dice ahí. María del Carmen ya se sorteó y vamos a ver, Maritza Mercedes Alejo Maraví, creo que no está.
Sí,
Deben
creo que
usar un
sí
solo
está.
canal.
Está
Presente.
dijo presente.
Oh, ya la
Dijo
vi. Sí,
presente.
sí, sí,
Sí.
ya está. Entonces sí, sí.
There we go.
Listo, los aplausos entonces para la segunda ganadora. Tenemos sus datos, no se preocupen, nos vamos a comunicar con ambas ganadoras, con Silvana Rosa Ciñas Rojas y con Maritza Mercedes Alejo Maraví, con ambas. Muchísimas gracias a las dos. Yo sé que quedó poco tiempito para el Exit Ticket. Vamos a abrirlo una vez más para que completen su registro, para que vean que nosotros les agradecemos mucho que estén conectados y que nos estén siguiendo hasta estas horas de la noche. A quienes no han podido registrar su asistencia, vamos a habilitar por 10 minutos el Exit Ticket, por favor. Así que pueden completar la asistencia ahora, ¿sí? Y mientras tanto, nosotros vamos en este momento a despedirnos ya, a cerrar este webinar. Estoy viendo acá algunos mensajitos. Vamos a ver. Si hay algo, por favor, recuerden que cuando les mandamos los mensajes, cuando nos comunicamos con ustedes, les damos las fechas también para que ustedes tengan una idea de cuándo es que va a iniciar el curso, el programa. Y ustedes tienen nuestro número de contacto en WhatsApp, el de todos los administradores en realidad, y ustedes pueden escribirnos en cualquier momento si tienen una duda. Así que no hay forma que no nos comuniquemos después para coordinar, salvo que por algún descuido, por ahí a ustedes también se les olvide, porque son cursos que van a iniciar, aunque este creo, Leo, inicia ya en una semana aproximadamente, ¿verdad?
Efectivamente, empieza el domingo 11.
Listo, perfecto. Entonces ya tenemos acá que está empezando el domingo 11. Entonces, por favor, tienen que comunicarse con nosotros también. Si nosotros nos comunicamos con ustedes para esa fecha, igual nos confirman los mensajitos que les enviamos, ¿sí? Y bien, muchísimas gracias entonces a todos, querido Leonardo. Gracias una vez más por este webinar grandioso. La verdad, creo que todos han estado súper conectados. Yo he podido leer, bueno, no he podido leer, la verdad, tantos comentarios a la vez, no sé cómo lo has hecho, porque yo he visto que respondías a todos a la vez. Creo que es la súper experiencia que tienes trabajando con tantos maestros. Ha sido una excelente sesión. Muchas gracias por aceptar nuestra invitación y siempre esperamos que tengas un espacio de vez en cuando para que puedas compartir con la comunidad de English Teachers in Perú y con todos los maestros que siempre están esperando el poder aprender mucho de ti, que sé que tienes mucho por compartir. Un aplauso de parte de todos los administradores aquí presentes para ti, estimado Leonardo. Tal vez algunas últimas palabras para despedirte de todos los...
No, simplemente siempre es un honor y un enorme placer participar en estos grandes, fantásticos eventos y mis gracias a ti y a tu maravilloso equipo, ¿no? Que siempre están ahí dando todo de sí, siempre los veo contentísimos, felices, sonrientes y todo, y de eso se trata, ¿no? Es maravilloso el trabajo que hacen ustedes y de verdad que los admiro y yo siempre estaré al servicio de lo que pidan de mí, ¿no? Con mucho placer y mucho
con mucho orgullo estaré ahí siempre cuando me necesite.
Gracias, Leo. Entonces vamos a tomarte la palabra. Te vamos a llamar más seguido porque los teachers están contentos
Por
con tus
supuesto.
webinars. Hoy día más de 700 maestros conectados, escribiendo todos a la vez. Ha sido realmente un webinar
Gracias.
bastante motivador, creo, para nosotros también como equipo administrativo, porque nos hace ver que realmente, pues, lo que queremos está funcionando, ¿no? El hecho de que pueda llegarles una oportunidad de capacitación productiva y además con especialistas a uno como tu querido Leonardo.
Muy amable.
Muchísimas
Gracias.
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 Gracias
Muy
una
amable.
vez
Gracias
más.
a ustedes.
Con todos ustedes el día de hoy, Mariela Condorena, administradora de la comunidad, Ángela Salazar Barreda, aquí está nuestra querida Angelita, Zulamita Chudén, que está también aquí presente, nuestra queridísima Consuelo Aurora Cáceda, que también ha estado presente detrás de las cámaras, José Ortega con toda la transmisión, Curvilela, que se acaba de ir hace unos minutos y todavía muy como una familia y por este apoyo que tenemos todos nosotros como equipo administrativo es que se puede llegar a organizar un evento como este, ¿no? Y por supuesto de personas que también como Leonardo Mercado, con un interés genuino por aportar a la educación, aceptan nuestra invitación y el único pago que nosotros les damos es aplausos y mucho cariño. Y mucho agradecimiento de parte de los maestros. Nos despedimos hasta la próxima sesión el próximo sábado. Bye, bye.
Chao. Bye bye.